Alrighty, guys. Bobby Roast Beef here, Jigs and freaking Bigs. We got one hell of a show lined up for you guys this week. We have none other than Michael McAmis, the owner of SacPig Bait Company. Yeah, he's the guy that creates those crazy over-engineered rats that I'm just crazy about. We got him in the beef seat this week, guys. We talk about fishing rats. We get into a really good conversation, a spirited conversation about knots and about gear. We get really, really nerdy with some stuff. It's really, really great. And, Michael has some amazing stuff kind of down the pipe that he is kind of mentions during this interview, too, that I think you're really going to want to check out. Dark Horse guys, make sure that you pay attention. This could be great. Joe and I have some stuff we got to talk about. We got a bunch of stuff coming up in October. We got to figure all out. Your boy did some fishing. He fished the damn moment, and it paid off. We'll go ahead and we'll review all that. We got some good information coming up about some spooky-themed sort of events that we have lined up for the month of October that you're not going to want to miss out on. We got some paranormal shit to talk about, too. Guys, don't go too far. We got more Jigs and frickin' Bigs coming up right after this. I mentioned some spooky shit coming up, and we'll get to that in a minute, but I think the most horrifying thing so far that I've seen in the chat from the jig heads is this from Todd Sefton out in Michigan. He goes, just getting off the water, boys, off the river, lost a giant largemouth at the net. Oh, that's a shitty way to wrap up a day right there.
That stinks. You know what? I actually have a tip of the week this week that kind of talks in that.
Okay. More
for the bass boat, but kind of that I forgot to tell you. We do things from the cuff here. You know what I mean?
I like that. We shoot from the hip.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that stinks, man. That's especially. I told a story how I gotta kind of have Jeremiah learn how to use the net a little bit better. And sometimes you just scoop that line instead of the fish, dude, and it's just game over.
Oh yeah, it's tough, man. It really is, and it's like. Do you get burned losing a fish from like somebody just flubbing the net job, and then you're all of a sudden like, no, I got this. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I'm a little like that. Like I was fishing with my old man. We'll talk about that. But before I get started, there's a couple things I want to do. I want to try and streamline segment one a little bit. As far as I was listening back to the show because I like to give a little quality control and listen back from that perspective and make sure everything's good, audio levels and things. And I've never had an issue with that. I realize I am a bit long-winded. You might say I'm a tad long-winded. I get into a story and I'm like, so I don't know if that's all right with you guys, but I'm going to try to streamline my week in review here. And one of the things I want to start off with is just mentioning a couple of the quick housekeeping things that I feel like get mentioned later in the show when some of you guys maybe miss out on it, all that stuff. So a couple things I want to tell you. This is Jigs and Bigs. This is your weekly dose of fishing, entertainment, and fun. All kinds of great stuff that we want to cover for you guys in here. So this is not everybody else's fishing podcast. We kind of like to, get a few yucks with our hooks. You know what I'm saying? And we take things kind of light and have some fun. And occasionally we learn some stuff and share some really great stuff, too. But what I want to ask everybody is, after last week, I asked everybody to go and give a subscribe to the Jigs and Bigs YouTube channel. And holy shitballs, you guys delivered. Thank you so much. I'm just trying to cross a specific threshold within a certain period of time. It's a little goal that I set, and I'm really, really close. It's not 1,000, but we're getting close. I set it at 500, and this is pretty. You guys are getting me much, much closer there. So if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and visit. But don't just go and subscribe to the Jigs and Bigs YouTube. Go and subscribe to the American Vet Fishing YouTube channel as well. I'm going to have both of them linked in the podcast description. So if you're like, what is this man talking about? You'll be able to get all that stuff there. Yep. We're also on a variety of social media networks as well. We're both on Instagram. We're actually both on TikTok. There is a Jigs and Bigs Facebook page that you can go ahead and like and follow and everything. We actually have the vast majority of followers there. It's like over 35K. It's crazy. So, Facebook fam, we love you. Thank you. We appreciate you. So go give that a follow. Another thing that I do want to mention, you'll hear us talk about the show a lot about jig heads and what that's about. Jig heads are the most dedicated and the most, I guess like the biggest supporters of the Jigs and Bigs podcast. They're essentially our Patreon subscribers. So we've got a Patreon membership that is available. It's $5 a month. It gives you full access to all of the live streamed episodes. We try to live stream every single one. Sometimes when we're remote, that isn't able to be the case. So, but for the most part, we try to live stream every single one exclusively to the jig heads so that, when we talk about Todd Sefton missing that giant largemouth, which he said was huge and a giant disappointment, and she was balancing on the edge of the net, my God, Todd, that sucks. Like,
that's the worst.
Todd is a jig head, and he gets access to this. So you can go and check it out. One thing that I do want to mention about Patreon, though, if you want to try it before you buy it, you can. You can become a member for free. It doesn't give you the ability to engage or comment or click any of the links or anything like that for the live stuff, but you can see kind of what is going on. And then you can always subscribe for a one-off if you want to check one out. Now, unfortunately, and I wish I could say that I had control over this, but this is a Patreon thing. It is a $3 minimum. So we've said it. If you want to try one of the streams and see what it's all about, when we record, go ahead and click on that and you can jump in for $3, try it out. And then if you want to subscribe, it's $5 a month, all of which goes to keep the show running. It helps, like, all of this shit, like, costs money. Like, it's, there's a process here. And, we like to be able to do some fun shit too. So all of that goes to help. We jump right back into the show, and it's a big, big deal. So now that we got that mentioned, there is also Jigs and Bigs merch. Everybody's always asking about Jigs and Bigs merch. Couple of items specifically, and you'd expect some of this stuff. We've got logo t-shirts and hoodies. We've got hats, a variety of different hats, a handful of them. We got some pretty interesting stuff too. Go check out the shop. It's at jigsandbigs.com/store or /shop, I think is what it is. But you can find it right there. You can also find it on our link tree on our Instagram if you're looking over there. But check out our merch because we got some really cool stuff. And if you want to throw some Jigs and Bigs stickers on your tackle boxes, on your boat, on your truck, on your mom, whatever, we have not just one, but 3 different size options for stickers for the perfect application wherever you want to go with. We also have a magnetic decal. I had purchased one just to see how it would do standing up to the elements and car washes and things like that. Holy shit, Joe, the thing is just clung on for dear life. I can't seem to shake that thing off. So yeah, that's going to be added soon if I hadn't already added it. So, and plus we've got a variety of stuff. So for you folks that are just checking out the show for the first time, popping in here, there's stuff. You guys can dive in and be a part of the group. I think that about covers all the housekeeping stuff that I wanted to cover. Oh, no, there's one other element to it. One of the things that makes Jigs and Bigs unique is that we're all about that whole angler. Every single month between April and October, we host a multi-species fishing scavenger hunt. It's an online tournament, catch, photo, release. It's super, super affordable. It's about $1 a day is what you're going to spend to enter. And we give cash prizes. The more anglers that we have on, the more places pay out. It's a whole lot of fun. It's a great little community. Those folks that dig on a bunch of multi-species fishing, they're out there, and all that bycatch that they're catching when they're out bass fishing or whatever species they're targeting, it's got a little purpose. And you're going to hear later in the show when I go through my week some of the adventures that went on that way. And of course, we do have some bass tournaments on there. Right now, we're working in 2024 with 2 slot limit tournaments. We did one in June. We have one coming up in October, and that one benefits breast cancer research. So if you are, looking at this podcast, and you're like, hey, I'd like to catch some bass for boobies. You can do so right by clicking the link. It's in Fishing Chaos. It's a $40 entry. $10 of that goes to BCRF, which right off the top, the rest of that is made up of prize money. And then we've got, again, it's the same payout system that we do for the scavenger hunts as well. So the more anglers we have, the more spots are going to pay out. We're going to have ourselves a good time. Whole lot of fun. The slot limit runs 12 inches as the minimum. The maximum fish, 17 inches. We do this so that nobody in like Louisiana, Texas, Florida, or California has some kind of an advantage over somebody in Ohio or Massachusetts or fucking Rhode Island. You know what I mean? No advantage. No advantage there. So that covers all the housekeeping and shit. I kept that under 10 minutes, including the first intro. I mean, that's, dude, streamlined.
It's pretty good.
That's a little bit more of a streamlined Bobby roast beef. That's what we're aiming for here, as much as I can. As much as my wife would love that. We're just kind of streamline things a little bit. But so that brings us to the next segment of our first segment here, or the next piece of our first segment. We're going to recap our weeks of what happened on the water. Now, Joe, it sounds like you didn't have a whole lot going on. What was going on?
Yeah, dude. So busy week at work this week, so I didn't get out on the water, unfortunately. And my wife's going to be traveling next weekend. So I was like, all right, I'll stay home this weekend. Then I'm going to be gone the following 2 weekends after that up at St. Lawrence River. So did some family time this weekend.
Nothing wrong with that,
I kept the boat parked, but I did a lot of planning for St. Lawrence both trips. So I did do that, kind of figure out finalizing some logistics and whatnot. So
nice.
Just getting pumped for that. I'm going to be bringing my boat down to Thayer's Marine at some point this week. I just want to have them look at one of my graphs. It's nothing really wrong with it. I think I screwed up a setting or something and I can't figure it out. So they told me just to bring it down so I don't have to keep friggin' trying to Google it and YouTube it and all that crap. So I'm going to do that at some point this week, and then I'm sure I'll be on the water this weekend with the wife being away and kind of living that bachelor life a little bit.
Fuck yeah, dude.
I'll definitely be hitting the water this weekend.
Nice. Very nice. So I did some fishing, and in last week's show, we had that really, and actually I should say, we talked about this in last week's Just the Tip segment. We talked about what it means to fish the moment and how easily you can kind of get sidetracked. You have like a wish list of like baits that you want to throw, or you're looking at, in my case, I was looking at the weather, expecting certain conditions and planning for them, and then arriving and having those conditions not be in the cards. And I realized, I was like, this is an old habit that I was sliding back into, trying to plan ahead and say like, oh, it's going to be windy, it's going to be this, I'm going to do this. And I would show up and, hey, anybody who's in New England, anybody anywhere really, I find this to be the case. They have that saying, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. I just feel like that's the case for so many areas where the forecast is only going to be so accurate. And sometimes they nail it and sometimes they don't. And this week, I intentionally was leaving baits tied on and then just making a judgment call when I got out there. When I got to the specific spot, was it sheltered where I was? Was there wind blowing into the bank? Was it cloudy? How all these things play out. And man, it paid off. I got out 3 times. I had 3 amazing days. So let's go through the breakdown. First off, I did Tuesday Send. I did a little trip on the Connecticut River. I've really been trying to break this thing down and have a little bit of fun. And I wanted to try a little bit of a section where I'd caught some before, but I really wanted to kind of spend a little bit more time dedicated to it. I was fishing with Tim Jakes the first time, and we had gone spot to spot, but I figured I'd really dive in. And I was throwing around, based on the conditions, a specific presentation, a finesse swim bait on a 1/4 ounce jig head, smaller profile, a 3.3 inch Kitech, in a specific color. And I would get the occasional tap, but I wasn't getting them to commit to it. So as soon as I was getting some taps, I stopped and I was in this area. I said, okay, so there's fish here. We're going to figure them out. What ended up happening was I downsized to a smaller swim bait using my B.A.S.S. And same thing. I'd get a couple of taps, but they just weren't committing to it. So what I did was I just grabbed my drop shot combo and I took that and I chose a plastic that was in about the same size and color, like the same kind of pattern. And I just started throwing that. And bro, I caught a dozen smallies, dude. And I was starting to run out of time. And it was so much fun. We had a great time. I was just me. I had a great time. It was an absolute blast. I caught a dozen of them. A lot of these were really like cookie cutter fish. I think the biggest one came in at like 12 3/4. They didn't help me for the tournament at all. I had to break 13.5 in order to get any upward mobility. And I was like, oh, well, let's see what's going to happen here. So I make a cast out. This is one of the, I'm like, only have a few more casts. Let's go for it. I make a cast out to this one area and I get slammed again. I set the hook on this fish and I bring it up, and no bullshit, dude. It was, I forget the length, but it was like an 8.5 inch rock bass. And I needed that sucker, so there was a point earned right there. It was absolutely insane. So I'm feeling good now. I'm feeling like, okay, cool. I fished the moment. I caught a bunch of them. And because I just worked this one spot, I eventually caught something that was going to help for the tournament. So this put me in a position where I was tied up in second place, I believe. I was tied up at this point. Now I was feeling pretty good. I'm like, this is great. I was in that big tie on the scoreboard that we had earlier in the week. So then I get out. Wednesday was a little bit of a shit show. I wasn't sure if I was going to fish on Wednesday, if I was going to fish on Thursday. As it happened to work out, my daughter, my youngest, had a half day. And she also had an eye appointment that day, which meant she wasn't going to school at all, which gave me some extra time. Now, my buddy Jim, I've fished with Jim Dandy a couple of times. He was actually the first fishing with Send Noobs segment that I had done on the Jigs and Bigs YouTube. And he's kind of been getting the bug. I think I'm close to him being like, yeah, I really like this and I want to do this. So I was looking at what I need, and I said, look, man, you live right along the Swift River. His apartment's like right along there. And I go, I'm going to go and fish the Swift this week. Let's just make it that day. I'll come pick you up. He says, great. Dude, fuck the Mass Pike. There was so much crazy traffic.
The worst, dude.
I was in the left-hand lane. I went right past the Palmer exit that I needed to get to. I went all the way out by your place. Had to fucking turn around.
I get off in Palmer, dude.
Yeah.
I get off in Palmer. You don't go past Palmer. Unless you got to go to Boston, you don't get past Palmer because you're going to get fucked.
It's the worst. It's all the construction and shit. It's just crazy. Yep. So I opted, I sucked it up. I called him. I was like, hey, here's my new ETA. Can I grab you a soda on the way or something? So because I was like, I'm going to need to get gas now too. I was going to get gas right near his place. So I go, all right, let's go ahead. We'll send it. We get over. I pick him up. I'm like, I'm a little bit stressed at this point now because now instead of having this amount of time, I'm like an hour short on the water. So I'm like, all right, well, I got till about 3:30. I'm going to go ahead and send it. We'll see what happens. So I go and we drop the boat in. And a little bit of information you're going to want to know is this body of water was just stocked on Monday.
Oh, fall. Yeah. Okay. So
yeah,
fall
stocking. It was the first spot in the state. Just stocked on Monday. And I was like, this is perfect. They get a couple of days to sort of accumulate to the conditions and accumulate to the new body of water. We'll go ahead and we'll send it. I was like, I feel pretty confident that I am going to catch at least a rainbow because they're going to be in there. And I go with him and I rig him up with essentially my drop shot setup. I just cut the drop shot rig off and I tied on an inline spinner. Gold blade, black weight with a little bit of gold glitter on it. And I'm like, you throw this. And I was like, do I want to throw a Bronco blade or a finesse swim bait? And actually, I started with that finesse swim bait, and I wasn't getting any taps or anything. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to put an inline spinner in too, but I'm going to go the entire opposite. I want the Fire Tiger pattern, with that dressed chartreuse hook and everything. And
yep.
I caught 4 or 5 brook trout. The majority of which would not meet the 8-inch minimum required to enter them in the tournament. But I did get one that went 8.5 or 8 3/4, which is just unbelievable. And it made me feel good because I was like, I'm going to throw this because I'm trying to get as many different species as possible. So I'm not going to throw something that's going to imitate a pellet to get one of those dumb stalkers. I'm like, I'm going to roll the dice and just cover as much water as I can. See what happens. The brookies were hunting, bro. And they were getting those autumn colors right before they spawn. They were getting real pretty. Some of these were absolutely gorgeous. I saw this big one come in and I was like, I'm just going to box them and then I'll measure them later. And then I caught a 13-inch rainbow on the same presentation. It was the only rainbow that actually bit. Everything else seemed to be a little bit too skittish. I'll bet you 24 hours later, and they would have eaten anything that went past their face. I would probably put money on that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's 2 points. Well, now...
Your boy's in first place, motherfucker, and I'm feeling good.
And that lasted about 3 hours. because I think it's Jason Stevens managed to surpass me in this and steal that first place spot. That was that day. I had gone and judged a bunch of fish. Actually, one of his I had to DQ. It was a brook trout because it was only 7¼ inches. It didn't meet the 8, so I had to DQ that one. But since then, Tim Behan has just gone and smoked us all. Tim Behan did what Tim Behan does. He got skunked with rock bass. Yeah, but you got all the other ones, man. Good job, Tim. So it was a good feeling. I was like, this is great. So when I got off the water that day, I dropped Jimmy off and I stopped over at my dad's place, and he's like, I found this first aid kit you should keep in your boat. It's, waterproof box and everything. It's really, covers all the bases. So I stopped by his place and I grabbed that, pop it in the boat, and we're talking. I was like, let's go out on Saturday. I got the entire day. Let's go and send it. Now, I do want to back up a little bit and say something that had happened on, this had happened once before, but this was the second time it happened. While I was on the Swift, on our way out, and I had been pushing my battery pretty hard, my trolling motor started to make this squealing sound. It was kind of funky. It was like, and it was variable with the speed. So if I would pop it into full speed real quick to maneuver around something and then shut it off, it would be higher pitch and then drop back down. So I'm like, is there like some line in there? But it's not, like I said, it's happened before, and then it stopped for quite a while. And then it just started again. Like Wednesday, I was like, that's fucking weird. And the last time it happened, my battery was really low. So I was like, maybe it's a battery thing. Like maybe it's not getting enough juice and it's kind of struggling, and that's like an indicator that it's, it's going to scare all the fish away for me because it's going to die soon. So I'm like, all right. So when I get home, I'm going to charge it. We'll see how it goes. Now, Saturday comes around. So Thursday and Friday, I didn't fish at all. I charged the boat on Friday night. I get out on Saturday, and my dad's at my house. We hit the road. We go. We went to this spot that's in Connecticut, and it's primarily a smallmouth fishery. And so we get out there, and the water's crazy low, lower than I've ever seen it before. But it's still, like, I think in the deepest spot, typically it's like around 115 feet. And it's a good reservoir for trout, smallmouth. Like, this is that spot where I caught that channel cat dragging a bait on a boat. Yeah. So we go, and I was like, I've never fished over by the dam. Let's just start there and we'll work our way back. So we get out there, and we're fishing this one bank, and again, fishing the moment. I'm like, I was expecting so much more wind and so much more cloud cover. I was like, that's not the case. And I just watched this video from our previous guest, Hank, the Bass Geek. I just watched this video with Bass Geek, and he was talking about how when you have high visibility, you need to lean a little bit more toward natural looking baits, like more natural presentations. So like that big swim jig or that jerk bait or that crank is probably not going to do as well as like a plastic, something that like along those lines. So like, we'll try that out. We'll see what happens. And I'm like, the visibility is pretty good, but I was like, with this lack of this change in the conditions from what I was expecting, I'm going to throw that finesse swim bait. Again, quarter ounce because we got depth and that 3.3 inch. And I'm getting a couple of taps. Like, no shit. Okay. Well, this time I just went and I grabbed the drop shot. And I cut off that spinning combo. I tied the drop shot back on, and I gave it a cast. And it's on the way down, boom, first smallmouth in the boat. Now I should say, my dad fishes a certain type of way. He brings 4 rods, right? 3 of them are under 6 foot ultralights. One of them is a 7 foot medium fast, right?
And that's the one you got him?
That's the one that I got him, yeah.
Yeah.
And we started having some fun with this. So I did something that was kind of cool. I was fooling around with this idea, and I was, like I said, I was throwing a specific color. It was like a bluegill or a perch type pattern, like green pumpkin, and I had colored some ends on it with my spike it markers. I'm a big fan of spike it markers. I really am. And I even convinced my father, which is amazing. Like, he went out and bought a 4-pack that day. Crazy. So I go and I'm throwing around. This is my last green pumpkin worm. My last one in this pack. So I'm like, shit. Well, that smallie tore the end off. I cut the tip and I was like, all right, we'll try this. Well, the next fish, same thing, just wrecked it. Now, my dad is throwing night crawlers on a small sinker rig, bottom rig, and he's catching these bluegill, dude, that are like dinner plates. They're huge. They're thick like that. Giants. Yeah. And I mean, you know, he loves it on light gear. So he's like, they're like pulling drag. And he's like, I was like, you need the net? He's like, I don't know. Maybe gets from the boat. I was like, yeah, you need the net. Let's net this sucker. So he's just, I mean, and I'll bet you all day he probably caught 12 to 15 big ones. And then a bunch of little like fucking rats in there too. It was unbelievable. So we make our way down over to this bank, and there's this spot by the dam where there's this big like concrete pillar that comes out. And up at the top, there's a sign. It says, stay 200 feet away, which we didn't even see till we were there. It was like we were like so close on it that when you look up, you get like a little dizzy and you're like, I'm going to fall off this fucking boat. You know what I mean? So we're like, all right, okay, that's not good. So we're like, well, fuck it. And until somebody says something like, we didn't see that. Dude, the fish that were stacked up here was ridiculous. And I got a bite and they ripped that worm off. And I was like, fuck. The only color I had was white. So I was like, all right, let's go ahead and try this. So I throw the white. I catch another smallie. I'm like, okay, this is going to work. That's great. And then I was like, I just want to get cute. I've got these colors of spike it markers I've never used before. And you know that old school saltwater plug color combo where it's a white or a bone plug?
White and red.
With the red head?
Yeah.
I have a red marker. It was brand new. I've never used. Dude, it looks like blood or wine. Like it's not. I thought it was going to be really bright. Yeah, it looks really good. So I colored the heads of these worms. I like to do that. I like to put a little bit of color accent up front to get their attention at the hook end, you know?
Yeah, of course.
You know, and
smart. That's fucking smart.
So I'm like, I'm catching smallmouth after smallmouth. I caught a couple of really big bluegill on this same setup. I'm like, this is great. So my dad's he's out fishing the hell out of me. He's just putting them in the boat. Like he's just grabbing them. He put some gloves on. So he's just like, yeah, I can handle and process them faster. Like he was industrially fishing. You know what I mean? It was ridiculous. So, it gets to this one point where we're over here and I'm like, all right, we should probably move back down here and see what happens. And I'm like, there's a style of fishing that I really like. And I just want to see if I could maybe upsize a little bit. And I'm like, they're hitting down low. And when I say down low, like probably like 50 feet of water. Like I was throwing an 1/8 ounce drop shot weight and it took like 45 seconds to a minute to get to the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It was deep. So I'm like, and I want some electronics on this boat so badly. So I'm out there and I'm doing my thing and I just picked up some wobble jig heads, wobble football heads, right? 3/4 ounce to drag on the bottom. And I'm like, let's go ahead and set this up, right? I pop it on my jig rod and I put a larger Kitech because these have pretty big hooks on it. So I put a 3.8 inch on there. Again, spike it the same way that I was before. And I caught the biggest smallie of the day, which came in at exactly the same size as the smallie I've already entered. So it didn't do any good for me in this. But hey, it was it was.
Damn it.
My dad, this is what was amazing, like a learning moment. So much for fucking keeping it short. My dad was like, that's amazing. He's like, that stuff really works that good, huh? I was like, I don't know what it is. If it's the scent, because the garlic scent's really strong. I was like, there's that theory that maybe they get like there's something that they can taste and maybe they hold on to it a little bit more. But I'm like, I definitely believe that if you put some kind of break in the color, it'll get them to focus on it. And he's like, all right. He goes, I'm going to go for it. And he's like, he's not really one to throw artificials. And he has this one box with like some really small tubes and jigs and a couple of different plastics in there. And he had this, it was like a really small, like a crappie tube, red with chartreuse tail. And he's like, what do you think of this? I was like, give it a go. Let's see what happens.
Okay.
Immediately, as soon as it hit the water, he was like, holy shit. And actually, this stems from the first thing he was throwing was a super tiny, not even like a net, just an open hook jig with like a small, like 1.5 inch. It looked almost, the body shape was like a frog. And he was like, I'm going to put a little bit of that red on the belly and see what happens. That first cast, he was like, holy shit. I'm like, and he goes, because it wasn't getting bit beforehand. Even when we were in where all those fish were, he would throw that and it was not getting bit beforehand. Like there's obviously some of that's just, it's a numbers game. Like something's going to bite it at some point, but he couldn't believe it. It was unbelievable. So this is where the day got kind of crazy. My trolling motor started squealing again right down there. And I'm like, fuck, what the hell is this? I was like, I looked at the battery gauge. I still had 3/4. Like we left on a full charge, and I'm like, I don't think that. I think I'm fucking crazy with thinking it's a battery issue or like not getting enough power or something. And he says, he goes, yeah. I told him, I was like, well, why don't we take a run up to the other end? I've never even seen that. We'll at least get eyes on it. We'll figure it out. So we take a zip up there and everything's cool. We're having a good time. We get up there and the river got so shallow up there that I buried the trolling motor in, because it got to a certain point where I was like, okay, it looks like we got some rocks coming up here. Let's just throw the trolling motor up and see how far up we can get. We got into some mud that was rough. I had to use the net to kind of like pry us off of it.
Yeah.
And
I've been there.
Yeah. And then the trolling motor stopped spinning. That was the worst part.
Oh, I didn't know that's when it stopped spinning.
That's when it stopped spinning. And I'm like, I have to assume that the two things are related. Like, it wasn't buried. Like, I just noticed, like, when, we got up into that mud, and I was like, all right, cool, let's back us up. Like, I noticed then it wasn't spinning. So it may have quit even beforehand because, again, we drifted into this,
Right.
And I thought Spot Lock was working this whole time because it's turning, but it's not spinning. And I was like, fuck. So I said, all right, so we're going to have to play around here. I go, I'm the heavier of the two of us. So I'm like, I'm going to put myself in a position on the boat where I'm going to move. I'm going to use the net to get us going. But I go, Dad, you're going to drive. He goes, all right, cool. So I was just like, yeah, just trim up a little bit. And then start her up, and then we'll just start going, because there were some fucking boulders. And he maneuvered like a champ around all of them, around every single one. I was like, that's great. We got out to where we had cleared all the rocks and everything, and I was like, go for it. Light it up. Let's go. So we headed back to the ramp, had a couple sandwiches on the drive home. It was awesome. In fact, I had this kind of transitions right into what we're talking about for spooky stuff. I was on the drive up. Yes. I told my dad about this podcast that I had seen, and I forget the name of the podcast. But
I wish you knew. I wish you knew, because I listened to a ton of them.
I'll look it up actually right now while I'm talking. Okay, actually, so it's called Bigfoot Society is the podcast. And I this caught my eye because it was like on a suggested thing, and I noticed that the guest that they were talking about this Bigfoot experience was local to Western Massachusetts. Specifically, his sighting was in between Granville and Blandford. I guess he was hunting.
Ooh, way up there. Yeah.
And he was hunting.
I mean, if there was going to be one here, that's where it would be.
That's a good spot. That's a really good spot for it to be. So I decided I'd check this out, and it was like, it's a really good podcast. Like, I should link it. I'll link it in the description if you guys want to check it out. Go ahead and check it out. He explains the whole thing. The guest name, his name is Ernie Davio. And he explains the whole situation. Actually, he's an Air Force vet too.
Oh,
yeah. So he explains.
That means he's a little smarter than the average bear.
Oh, yeah. you know. Also it's the way he explains it is fantastic, super detailed, and it's kind of a crazy experience, like where he's looking at it and they're like right in front of him, and he was like, I don't know if this is a hunter or a deer that's bedded down, but it was like up against a tree, and he was just like, because that's what he thought there were deer moving in, and there very well actually may have been, and then they turned off. But yeah, he has this like exchange back and forth where like it was giving like hand signals, like stop, like that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, all
and
right.
It's a pretty crazy fucking story, man. So this leads me to the conversation that I had with Joe on my way to trivia on Thursday. I was like, dude, I'm fucking kind of getting into this shit. I don't know if it's because it's the fall and it's Halloween's around the corner. I'm like, I'm not a huge like conspiracy theory or, paranormal, anything like that, whatever necessarily. But I'm like, I'll say this much. I'm not a believer, but I'm not necessarily a non-believer.
Yeah.
You know
what I call that, Bobby?
What's that?
You know what I call that?
Oh, no.
Because that's what I consider myself.
Yep.
An active skeptic.
Yes, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I call myself. Yeah.
What a great way to word it. So Joe says, he's like, dude, he's like, Meg and I are into this shit. Like, let's, and then the idea comes across. He's like, we should do some kind of a special for Halloween. I'm like, the timing is fucking perfect. It's right. So perfect. So the last couple of days, this is really one of the big things that I had done on Friday while I was around. I said, look, I'm gonna post a couple of things to try to get folks to share their stories. Now, Sean the Fisherman is he knows a bunch of shit about these sketchy areas. Oh, absolutely. Like, Joe, you had mentioned specifically like the Bridgewater Triangle. And I know that a lot of our listeners, like the majority of our listeners are in New England, and a lot of our listeners fish in that area, and there are some crazy sightings of all sorts of different things. But also we have folks that fish in the Berkshires, specifically October Mountain. That area,
that's right,
is insane for cult activity, for UFO sightings, for all types of paranormal and supernatural shit. In fact, there's some pretty famous ghost stories that come from there regarding a young girl. I think her name is it Amanda Pease? She was like 11.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know if it starts with an A, Amanda or Angela, I forget. But like, so I took a little bit of a deep dive, and I'm like, we got some shit to talk about. This is great. We can cover this stuff. And especially the Bridgewater Triangle. It's crazy. Like the first time I ever heard anybody bring up puckwudgies, it was Sean the Fisherman. And I'm like, that's like a well-known thing. Not just in New England. Like, it extends up toward like, I don't know if like maybe the Yukon, but well into Canada and along the West Coast, like through the Great Lakes. I'm like, this is wild. So the internet has spoken. You guys want us to do this, and here's what we want you to do to get involved with it. First off, we're looking at a couple of guests to have on. We figured since we're getting into things slowing down, we kind of want to do some roundtables where we can have a bunch of folks on talking and sharing stories. We're going to double down on this too. So if you would like to be part of our roundtable, please get in touch with us. You can email us at jigsandbigs413 at gmail.com. Hotmail, what the fuck? My fucking 80?
Does that even exist anymore?
I think it might actually.
No kidding.
Even better, you can call or text the hotline. The phone number is 413-324-8519. You're going to hear a spot run later for this. The Jigs and Bigs hotline, it's basically a Google voice number. You can call and leave us a voicemail. It'll cut you off at 3 minutes. But you can leave as many as you want. We'll take that audio. If you want to share your story, you can call as many times as you need to put the story together, and I can edit this together. We'll gladly play it and kind of react on it. I'm hoping to have one very special guest as part of the roundtable. You guys listening to the show, if you follow the, whole like supernatural like content, you will know who this is. But I will, it all depends if they're available to do it necessarily. I'm going to run it past them and see what they say.
Right.
But it would be really, really great. So we're going to get spooky this Halloween for the first time ever. And I think maybe we should.
And if you call in,
yes.
It's totally fine if you do it anonymously.
Oh yeah, you don't have to give your name. And
You don't have to give your name, nothing like that. Totally, anonymity is totally fine.
Even if you call and you say your name in the recording and you're like, shit, I said it. Call and leave a message or text that same hotline number and let me know, and I'll edit it. I'll put something in there. I'll just be like, it'll be like, hey guys, this is
Jimmy.
and I'll just whatever, it'll be fine. Or I'll edit it out, something like that. But dude, yes, please share your stories. I never thought about that. People might not want to fucking talk about shit.
Yeah,
out in the open.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, dude. I'm pumped for this one, because like I told you, it's kind of a thing that Meg and I always go on the ghost walks at Salem. We went to the I think I mentioned it to you when you were down in Vegas the last time, the haunted museum.
Yes,
dude, that was like the coolest place I've ever been to. I told you, I call myself an active skeptic. I don't necessarily at this point believe it, but I kind of want to, and I'm going to continue to watch and learn to continue to kind of get my standpoint on things. That's how I look at it.
It's especially when it comes to Sasquatch, because that's a global thing. It has different names.
Sure. Sure.
But I 100% can see how something like that, there's a lot of folks that are just like, well, how science, we would have seen it, something like that. There was a guy I was talking to Friday night at trivia. He was like, how come there's not a fucking pile of bones in the woods somewhere? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they fucking bury them. I don't know.
And those are the ends of it, that you're kind of like, oh, well, how can it be? But dude, at the same time, I'm a nerd. I read a lot of different stuff and listen to a lot of different stuff. And we still are finding animals on this earth right now.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
On land, ocean, that never seen before. Things that they thought were extinct, decades, centuries ago, are still popping up and around. So you never know.
It is. It's crazy. It's crazy. Never say never. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right.
It's just freaking bananas. So yeah, my
help
week,
us.
Yes,
help us make this a sick show, an awesome special, an awesome Halloween special. We want to hear your stories. Help us make this a good one.
It'll be a great one. It'll be even better if we have a bunch of folks participating as part of it.
Yep.
It really is. It's the first roundtable.
Yeah, exactly. We want to. Between the folks on the round table and Bobby and I, we want to hear your story, and we want to give our take or our thoughts or our reaction.
Sure.
We tell you, maybe you're not so crazy because you didn't want to tell your story before or anything like that. But yeah, I'm pumped for it.
I think it's going to be really good. I do think for today's show, I think we should shift gears, jump into the headlines. We got pizza to talk about, but let's talk about that on the back end after the interview.
Okay.
This way, if you guys want to know what the fuck's going on with the pizza conversation that we've been having over the past couple of episodes, we started at New Haven and now we've just gone, we've exploded.
Bobby and I did our field research.
We did. It was fun field research. It really was. All right.
It was.
Let's go ahead and do it. Get some headlines, baby.
All right, so, per usual, I try to get at least 2 stories for you guys. The first one's kind of going into the professional part of fishing, and it's essentially the new format for Opens and Elite Qualifier Series has been announced. So this is essentially new ways for, if you got a bass boat and you want to become an elite pro, this is the new way to do it. So the popularity of the St. Croix Bassmaster Opens presented by Seven and Tackle Warehouse Bassmaster Elite Qualifier Series has surged over the past 2 years. Today, B.A.S.S. announced enhancements to both properties that will inspire even more anglers to compete for the opportunity to walk across bass fishing's biggest stage. Beginning with the 2025 season, the Opens will evolve into an 8-event season comprised of 2 divisions, each featuring 4 tournaments. Anglers will placing in the top 50 of each division will advance to the newly installed Bassmaster Elite Qualifier Series. So essentially before you just kind of, they had the opens and that was kind of your way to get into the Elite Series. And now they're just essentially kind of another step because they are getting a ton of people going into these opens.
Yeah. It's more of a filter.
But kind of. Yeah. That's a great way to put it. So let's see here. So this is a great step for the opens and giant leap for the EQs, said Executive Director of Tournaments Hank Weldon. While the existing format fielded well-rounded anglers who were prepared to fish against the best in the world, it also left competitors who found themselves out of the running for Elite Series qualifications locked into the remainder of the 9-event season. This modification will allow an angler to commit to just 4 opens. And that was the other thing. You had to compete in all 9, and these things are like $1,400 a piece. Yeah. So the modification will allow an angler to commit to just 4 opens for all 8 if they want additional opportunities, and then decide to move on to the all-new and separate EQ series or qualifying series. In addition to the 100 anglers qualifying from both divisions of the Opens, all current Bassmaster Elite Series anglers will be eligible to compete in the Elite qualifiers. I don't agree with that one, but that's neither here nor there.
Oh, all right.
So the second and third place finishers from the Mercury Bass Nation Championship can also compete. Let me see here. From an Elite Series standpoint, the model is extremely attractive. For the guys who failed to requalify, it offers immediate opportunity to get back to bass fishing's biggest stage. For those elites who failed to qualify for the Classic, it offers 3 more opportunities to earn a ticket to the Super Bowl bass fishing. Here's why I don't agree with it. So you're getting these Elite Series guys essentially competing into these events that members like myself or you are trying to get into the Elite Series. You know what I mean? So they're trying to compete with these guys, but it's also, if you win one of these, it looks like it's staying that way, you automatically get into the Classic. Yeah. That's how Ben Milliken got into the Classic last year.
Was by winning one of those qualifiers?
Right.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So if they didn't qualify again for the actual Elite Series, obviously this is their way to requalify.
Yep.
But current qualified Elite Series pros, I don't think should. It's like, dude, it'd be like Tom Brady going and playing, college ball for a week again when he was still playing, just because he wants to get some more points. You know what I mean?
I see what you mean. You put that level of experience against someone who's literally just coming out of the Opens, getting into
exactly.
It. What's the likelihood that one of those folks is going to outfish somebody who's already been in that elite level?
Right.
That makes sense. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, so that's where obviously if an Elite Series pro didn't qualify for the Elite Series the following season, then he would have to requalify. That's just the way it is.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
For current Elite Series pros to be able to go and fish in these qualifiers, I don't agree with it. I don't like it. It stinks to me. And it's like, okay, so what, you have 100-person field. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And 80 elite guys decide, like, I'm going to go fish that. So what? It's only a field of 20, people trying to qualify.
Yes, exactly.
So, but
that's nuts.
I don't agree with that. But entry fees for each event will remain $2,000 for the Opens and will remain $2,000 for the Opens, pros, and $475 for the co-angler. And that's for the Opens. Once you get into the EQs, it'll be $3,500 per event. So it's big money, dude. It's big money.
It is big money. Yeah,
you know what I mean. So,
but at least at $2,000 a pop, you're looking at dropping what, $8,000 in the year.
Yeah, that's $8,000 minimum.
Oh yeah.
And that's so if you don't qualify, to go into the EQ, then
man. It's a lot of fucking money.
So, but it's the risk you take, and that's a problem. It's not the problem, but it's a risk you take. That's how guys get in. But I'm just hung up on the pros being allowed to fish in these qualifiers.
I mean, I could see there being two sides of that. Like, definitely understand where you're coming from, because yeah, let's say you have somebody that's at that upper echelon jumping into these elite qualifiers. Now you're like, well, like, I mean, at the same time, like, you've qualified to get there. They've clearly qualified to get there.
Sure.
Maybe the argument is that they're overqualified, but at the same time, like, it is tournament bass fishing, and crazy shit can happen in a second.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So, like, how cool would it be if you were just like, oh, I just smoked so-and-so in the Elite Classic. I might have finished 10th.
Yeah.
But they finished 25th or some shit.
And it absolutely could happen. Yeah. And it probably will happen because, it's just the way it is. But I think the biggest thing I took out of this is how do I put it? If their pros have to go into the semi-pro series to make the classic, maybe the way they have the classic set up to qualify needs some restructure.
Oh, I gotcha.
Or if you didn't make it on the Elite Series, you didn't make the classic that way, better luck next year. Like, it doesn't mean you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's just kind of the way I think of it.
It's almost like it's like a back door to re-enter. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
You know
It's
how
like a
they
cheat
like
code.
the old back door, don't you?
You knew that was coming because no one else can play with that. Shit, dude.
Yeah. So yeah, whatever. We'll see what happens with that. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think as well about that aspect of it. I think it is a great opportunity. I think it's a better opportunity for members to qualify. It's just, the two divisions and then, the top 50 from each one of those divisions make it. I think that's great. I think that's good.
Fuck yeah.
It's just allowing the elite, the people that are already in the elites already have the sponsorships in there. It's like,
yeah, they're not paying that amount of money. Damn. I wonder if we have any listeners that are considering entering the opens.
Right.
Right. And if they're in that circle, because, like, I mean, I know we talk about, like, our audience, like, we feel like we have a good connection with them, like, it's specifically with the jig heads. But there's a lot of these folks that listen to this show that we don't know. Oh,
of course, yeah.
It's wild. Yep. I'm curious if anybody out there fishes at that level and they're just like, yeah, I'm fucking going for it.
Yeah. And so next one, it's not so much a story or headline that I have. It's more of just gee whiz information and kind of telling some people we're thinking of them. But, obviously down in Tennessee, the Carolinas, Virginia, they're dealing with all that flooding. And aside from, obviously, it's screwing up their waterways for those folks that, their houses are good, chances are their waterways that they fish are all jacked up right now. So that's super unfortunate, but there are a lot of people that have or are currently losing their homes, their houses, their places of work and stuff. So we are thinking about you guys. Dude, I actually saw a picture today. I don't know how true it was. I don't know. I actually saw it like while eating dinner before we came down here, but I don't remember if it was on TikTok or Instagram saying that like there's some aquarium or something down there where like dolphins escaped and because of the flooding, and there was like dolphins like jumping around, swimming like down the streets. I don't know how true it is, but
could fucking happen.
Yeah. So it's kind of that. So I know I even know some of you guys that are in the chat or from that area and kind of are currently dealing with that. Someone actually just said it. Yeah, John Hagen said it. So thinking about you guys, and the water will come down eventually and get back out there, but that's kind of it.
My youngest has a friend that lives in Western South Carolina, and they got smacked. Their house is okay. Their neighbors did not fare nearly as much. It's crazy. Some of the videos, Smallmouth Messiah is one of our followers over on Instagram, and he's actually been documenting, posting on his story and everything, like some of the flood stuff that's been going on, like crazy. Like the water's recessed now, starting to recess, and you'll see like shad on a sidewalk. It's just crazy.
It's crazy, dude. It just goes to show, the dams, the levees, all that stuff.
Yep.
Our infrastructure's getting old, man, and this shit can happen.
For sure.
It's unfortunate. So everyone, keep your heads up. You got this.
Yeah. Nuts, man. Yeah, John Hagen's comments. He goes, I was lucky enough to dodge it on my way back from Texas, but I came up through central Tennessee and missed the flooding by about 100 miles. Nice. That was lucky because John and we actually had talked. He was down in Texas when we were talking on Instagram DM, and he was, man, that's crazy, dude. Oi.
Not so, but yeah, so that's that.
Friggin' nuts. I think we have. Let's go ahead. We'll put a cap on this segment here. We'll turn it around. We got some information for you guys in segment number 2. No FTGs this week, though. Apparently, like everybody in the world was on their best behavior, which is pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. In fact, I'm kind of amazed I had no FTGs whatsoever. Actually, maybe I might be able to muster one. We'll see. Don't go too far, guys. We got much more Jigs and Bigs coming up right after this. Jigs and Bigs wants to take a moment to say thank you to our partners for helping us continue to push the limits of our fishing adventures and bring you amazing long-form podcast content. We need to thank Dark Horse Tackle, Omnia Fishing, A-Bay Lure, The Bay House, and The Ship Motel. We can't forget about Three Bells Outfitters, Torres Sunglasses, and of course, Reaction Tackle. Be sure to check the description of this podcast for any associated affiliate links or promo codes they've generously provided our listening audience. Again, we cannot thank our partners enough for their support. Please consider supporting them and supporting the show in the same process. Thanks. Hey, you. Yeah, you. The one with the impeccable taste in fishing podcasts. Bobby Roast Beef here with a little call to action for all Jigs and Bigs listeners. We're opening up our hotline to you. Now you can call us to sound off about almost anything at 413-324-8519. Want to submit someone for our FTG segment? Call us at 413-324-8519. Care to maybe suggest a topic for just the tip or bait of the week? Call us at 413-324-8519. Maybe you just want to give us or anyone else a little shout out on the show, or you want to suggest a guest for the beef seat. You guessed it. Call us at 413-324-8519. The Jigs and Bigs hotline is there for you to leave a message with us 24/7. Just call 413-324-8519. Also, you can check that number in the notes of this podcast.
And perhaps play a little game called Just the Tip. Just for a second, just to see how it feels. Or, ouch, ouch, you're on my hair.
Okay.
All right, I got a quick tip for you guys. So I know we talk a little bit about, Todd was just talking about how he lost that fish in the net. And one thing that we deal with, especially with the largemouth with the largemouth, especially the smallmouth, is they like to get a little acrobatic after you catch them. They start jumping. A lot of times, sometimes they'll shake the hook on you. And this is a tip I'm actually trying to teach my kid right now because he felt the wrath of this one. And now that I just said this, I remember the gear thing. But
Beautiful.
Well, of course. But no, so there's a way to kind of try to get those fish to not jump so much, and especially like for me in tournaments, like when you're just fun fishing, it's cool to see those fish jumping out of the water and getting acrobatic, and it's a great time. In a tournament, it is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, for sure.
Or if it's like it is something that's potentially like your PB, or if you're if you're fishing the multi-species, you want to get that fish to the net. So the tip I have for you is, you'll see your line in the water, right? Where your line hits the actual water, and once that fish is starting to come up, and like it's gonna like it's going to jump, that the point of contact of the line into the water is going to start going away from you. Okay, it's going to quickly start to go away from you, and you can, when you're holding that rod, you can kind of feel it, but if you're looking at it, you're going to see that line start to go away from you, and that's them coming up higher into the water column, and they're getting ready to most likely jump. When that happens, stick your rod tip as low as you possibly can.
100%.
Whether you have to put that rod tip into the water, that's totally fine. But that will discourage them from jumping because you're going to put a little tension into them to go back down. So, easy tip.
Yeah.
Great. It's something you have to kind of. It's something you have to kind of teach yourself and to remember. But I promise you, if you keep practicing this, it'll eventually become muscle memory, and you will land, especially the smallies, you will land more fish doing this.
Yeah.
And I promise that. And I got a quick one. I'm going to go into another quick one that I just thought of that we were thinking about last week. So always check your baits, check your hooks, check them often. And the reason I say that is I think I told you how Jeremiah had lost it happens, man. But I think I told you Jeremiah lost a couple. During our trip, and I go, what? I was like, oh man, it happens. I'm trying to teach him, keep your rod tip down.
Yep.
And he started to get better at it, and he still was kind of losing. He still lost a couple. And I look at his bait, and he had got hooked on a rock at one point, but got it off. I've been showing him the bow and arrow trick,
Oh yeah.
And dude, that hook was so bent out. It was like, it was so bent out, dude. So, especially if you get hung up on rocks, rocks. Timber, anything like that, make sure you're checking that hook, especially if you're finesse fishing in that it's a smaller gauge wire on those hooks.
Yep.
They will bend. So
and check the barb too.
Yes.
I had a situation on Saturday where I swapped out my drop shot hook because the barb was starting to get dull.
Yep, the barbs can get dull. The barbs can almost like ground themselves down.
Yep.
So that's huge. So just make sure you're checking that stuff, especially after you get hung up on timber. Very rarely will it happen on thicker gauge like standard hooks, but it's mostly like your finesse stuff. You have to really ensure that, because they will bend, and usually, if it's not too crazy, you can bend them right back. You don't have to necessarily have to cut it off and call that one a loss, but they will usually bend back. But yeah, just make sure you're checking that stuff.
100%, dude. 100%. I had a finesse jig that people see all the time. It hangs from my mirror now, and I had the barb get worn out. I caught probably 60 fish on this jig, and I had lost one, and I was like, let's take a look at this. And I cut it off, and I replaced it and went back to catching fish. But I was like, this is now a trophy on its own. Like, I'm like, it went through the motions. No, dude, both of those are really, really fantastic tips. And I mean, that's the thing. I think we got to like also let people know, like, burying the tip of your rod into the water to prevent a jump is not a guarantee. Like, they can still jump, but it will deter them,
Yeah, it knocks your percentage points up a little bit more and to being able to land that fish. Because especially with smallies, those of you who are up north or whatever, as soon as you catch a smallie, especially those river smallies, for some reason, I feel like they spend more time out of the water as you're fighting them than they do in the water.
Yeah.
So.
Piss and vinegar.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And that's why they're a blast to catch.
Dude, that is a fucking good one, man. That's a really good tip. Good job. So as luck would have it, I actually managed to think of somebody I could throw under the bus for this next segment.
Fuck that guy. Fuck that guy. Fuck that guy.
I want to say a big old FTG to Brunel's Marina on the Connecticut River.
I know Brunel's.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We all do. I've caught some big fish off those fucking slips. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I went in there today because I'm like, I'd like to kind of find other spots to drop the boat in. You know what I mean? Mainly, like, I'll be honest with you, like, I have no issues with the Oxbow launch whatsoever. It's a public launch, but it can get packed. And I'm like, what are the alternatives? You want to know how much those motherfuckers charge to use their launch?
Ooh.
It's not as bad as Webster. It's not as bad as
$25.
40.
That's pretty bad.
That's pretty fucking bad.
That's pretty bad.
It's pretty fucking bad. So, yeah, fuck Brunel's Marina. No fucking way. If I did have a fucking waterbound patio, I would not be leaving it there at all. I know, like, I could fucking get on the waiting list for the Holyoke Canoe Club.
Right.
They have a launch right there as well. It could be years before I'm there, but I think that their membership is like $500 for the year. But there's other benefits. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like $40 a pop for a day to launch my boat out of your marina. Get the fuck out of here. You guys are fucking high. Because I'm going to go there and I'm going to put more money in your fucking pocket eating at your fucking restaurant and drinking at your bar and all that other shit. Like, fuck you. Done. Yeah. So that is a good FTG. My daughter was with me. We went out to go grab coffee and just go for a drive and kind of bond a little bit. And I was like, we went by there and I was like, you know what? I'm going to dip in here and ask the attendant what it is. And she's like, oh yeah, it's $40 a day. And like, her eyes almost fucking fell out of her head. She was like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm like, yeah,
that's
40
awesome.
bucks. And I told her about when you and Jeremiah were up at Webster. It was like, wasn't it 60? They got you for it? Yeah, that's crazy, man. I get it. It's private property and you can do what you want. I get it. But go fuck yourself. You're not going to get my money.
Well, that's the worst thing about Webster, dude. That's a state ramp.
Oh, that's a state ramp?
That's a state ramp.
Oh, I thought it was like a private, like one of the marinas or something.
No,
fuck
dude.
that, dude. Fuck you, Massachusetts.
Yeah, that's where it's even worse.
Jesus,
it's like,
dude, that's shit.
It's one of those state ramps, but run by the town.
Yeah.
So they have, dude.
That's
wild.
Fucked up. Man, what a fucking mess. Yeah, $40. I was like, fuck you guys. But now I'm interested because Joe said he just remembered what this is. So this could get good. If you're a techie kind of angler, you're really into gear, you want to know everything about all the stuff, this segment's for you.
Okay, gearheads, it's time to talk tools. Jigs and Big's Gear of the Week.
What do we got, Joe?
So it's funny. This is kind of a fumble of the show. So the gear thing I had that I thought of was the bent hooks thing that I already kind of mentioned.
Oh, okay.
Like what? Whoops, we fumbled. That's okay. But no, so basically just it was just kind of a when you're especially with those finesse jig heads, stuff like that, just make sure you check in the the thickness of the hooks and stuff like that, and for bending and whatnot. So I wasn't sure last week. I wasn't sure if I wanted it to be a tip or a gear. Yeah, and I just threw it into the tip at the end of that.
Gotcha. But it's true though. It's like I've had that happen with like some of those like super finessey swim baits. Although I don't want to give too much of a plug, but the Jig Masters and the Picasso jig heads that I've been using. Those are pretty finessey hooks, and I haven't had any issues with them yet, and I've caught a shit ton of fish on both of those.
I will tell you, I have been using... So, there's two, like, obviously, like I said, Demiki rigs have been my big thing lately with the smallmouth. Thanks to the Butcher for getting me back on them.
Oh, yeah.
But there's two that I use, right? I use the Jig Masters, and I use the Z-Man... the one with the big eyes on them.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. So those are the two I use. I will say I love Jig Masters, dude. I love Jig Masters stuff. I don't love the screw lock bait.
Oh,
keepers.
really? It's one of my favorite things. I wish they would do that on the Picassos.
I don't love it.
Really?
And mostly because like. So when I'm using a Demiki rig, it's really fine. You know what I mean? But especially I have a bunch of that I bought actually at the Columbus show. I bought a bunch of the Joshies? The red ones.
Oh yeah.
The red Jig Masters, and I have the Joshies. And like we talked about with the Spike It and stuff like that, I love having, especially with smallies, dude, I love having red somewhere. And like you said, like I love it being before the hook, so I like to use those red hook keepers, or I'm sorry, those red jig heads. But it's tough to get a Joshy to sit where you want it to sit on a Jig Masters
Really?
jig head.
I'll show you the way I do it.
I mean, you're gonna have to show me, dude. Like I have, like, I'll have, and maybe, and we'll come back to this. Like maybe I'm just stupid and I'm just doing everything the wrong way, but I've always gone out and looked for the different types of bait keepers.
Yep. Oh yeah.
I've just have never been a big fan of the screw lock, but maybe Bobby can change my mind. Maybe Bobby can change my mind.
I'll tell you, the screw locks can be interesting. Like I love them because like that bait is not coming off. Like it's not going to get pulled off. The only pain in the balls is when you get like a bite from something toothy and they like pull the tail off. And you're like, well, now I got to change this because the action's gone or whatever, you know? I do like a screw lock head. It took a little bit of time, and it was something about the Joshies. Like they just sit a little bit different. And it's very easy to weave that hook a little bit off center, but once you nail it and you get it centered, that sucker's not coming off. And like I will say, like one of the things, like the Kitex, they're a really soft, supple plastic, and the process of putting them on, I've noticed you have to be a little bit more careful with. The Joshies I can almost put on just holding the tail and like grab them like this. Almost. Like I'm reeling. Like it's crazy. But with the Kitex, I got to be a little bit more careful. I got to be a little bit more mindful of where that hook point comes out, leave it, and then do the twist and then move the tail over and like take my time with it. Because I know if I'm going to lose a tail, it's going to be on one of those Kitex. It's 100% going to be on one of those. Yeah, I love a screw lock keeper. If possible, if I were to get into the jig business, like if I were into the business of making jigs, like this show just came out with their own style, I would 100% have a screw lock keeper on it. Just because set it and forget it, you know? Although, have you ever fucked around with super glue on your jigs?
No, I have fucked around with super glue on not my jigs.
Like swim bait heads, stuff like that?
No.
Or Neds?
No,
really?
Neds. I will fuck with it.
Gotcha.
I will use some super glue on my Neds and stuff like that. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And I had super glue in the Skeeter. I don't have any in the Icon. I haven't really had to. Yeah, there should be some in the boat.
Super glue is handy to have on because there are some jig heads where they're like, hey, this is the keeper that we like. You know, this is what we do. I almost kind of want to fuck around with super glue on the EWGs. Just put the glue on the head and then really stick it up against there. I feel like it makes a lot of sense with the Z-Man stuff, the Elastec, because that plastic is so durable. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Todd says I have it, but I hate using it. You know, I'll tell you one thing that sucks about super glue. When you're out fishing, you're having a great day, and maybe you're playing Bobby Roast Beef's patented fish whistle game, to where you're like, okay, eventually you just start doing stupid stuff because you're a little stupid, and you're like, shit, I got my fingers glued together, man. What the fuck? Hang on. It's more like,
man, I got my fucking fingers glued together. I'm a fucking idiot. Oh, fuck.
You know, these things happen. But
my biggest use for super glue typically is to close bad cuts that I was stupid enough to cut myself, and it's usually what I use the super glue.
I got a story for you. You ready?
Okay.
Buckle
all
up.
right.
So there was this one time where this is back when I was renting a room at Jimmy's house. He inherited his grandparents' house. This was the place that was on the lake. It was one winter night. We had gone out like in the snow, and like we're like, we'll get some movies. We'll hang out. I'm like, I'll make some dinner. We're not going nowhere. It's crazy. And I happened to get a fucking cut on my index finger right here, cutting up some Italian sausage that was a little frozen underneath, and the knife did one of these on me. And I cut the very, very, very end of my finger. Like the nail still grows fucked up. And later we found the end of it on the floor. So I was like, fuck, dude, this is bleeding like a motherfucker. I was like, we got to go to the fucking ER. And I mean, Jimmy, you know, I tell this story all the time. Jimmy was coked out of his fucking mind back then. And he gives me a ride to the ER and it's fucking snowing. And I'm like, this is fucked, dude. Oh my God. And I'm losing my mind. And he was really losing his mind. So we get to the ER. The guy's like, there's nothing for me to stitch. I'd love to stitch it, but there's nothing for me there. He goes, get some liquid bandage. Put that on. Yeah. That shit hurts like a motherfucker, right?
Yep.
I left it at home. This happened on a Saturday night. I had a show, an all-ages show to play on Sunday. It was, have you ever heard, there's a band that used to be in the area called 30 Stones.
No.
All right. They used to cover and like, they used to do like Godsmack and like all right. covers like that and shit like that. But they had their own original stuff as well. And my band at the time was opening for them. And I'm like, all right, cool. We'll go ahead and do this, whatever. And it was packed. There was like 400 people in this room. And I'm like, I'm not canceling this fucking show. So I had I played drums. So I had this finger like taped up and everything and bandaged and all that, and I had the liquid bandage on it and everything, and I'm playing, and like this was like, you know, kind of like gothy Coldplay shit that we played, but I hit fucking hard, and my snare drum had this fucking splatter of blood across it at the end of that set. It was ridiculous.
Oh, perfect.
In the back of my truck, I have a small this was shit, what the fuck was I driving? Yeah, I was driving. It was my old S10 pickup, and in the back I had a small toolkit of shit that I would use for when I did events, and in there like gaff tape, electrical tape, like some connectors, a crimper, shit like that. I had some super glue, so I fucking glued the tip. Holy fuck, that shit burned so bad because it was like actively bleeding, and I was like, motherfucker, dude. But it worked so good.
Dude, all my deployments and stuff, that was like the number one thing we had in our med kits and stuff. Oh yeah.
You fucking need it. It's insane. Oh,
I went to go do it to one of the boys once, and Meg's like, "Don't you fucking dare."
I mean, it's one of those things. Like once if you're ready for it, it's like okay, whatever, grit your teeth and fucking get through it because it does work so good.
It does, and it was one of those instances where I was like, "Oh shit, okay, I gotta stop the bleeding real quick." And I'm like, you know, from all the deployments and stuff like that, you like it was just like second like muscle memory, dude. And she's like, "Don't you dare."
I gotta fucking play this now, dude.
Oh, I did hear that. That was awesome.
That was fucking hilarious. So Todd chimes in. He goes, speaking of music, the Matt T techno mix was amazing. And now I have to fucking play it. Where is it? I think, what did I call it? Matt. There it is. I'm going to play it for you guys because some of you may not have listened to it at the Easter egg all the way at the end.
Cumberland Farms, 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 Cumberland
Farms. I'm gonna cut it early because I don't want to get demonetized. But Jesus fucking Christ, dude, that made me laugh so much. Oh man, I sent it to him and he loved it. He was like, "Holy shit."
That's perfect.
The fucking flange on there is just great. Oh, Jesus Christ, I'm a moron. I think that about wraps up things here. We don't have anything else for this segment, but we do have an interview you're not going to want to miss.
Yes.
This is a really good one. Michael McAmis is the owner, the proprietor of SacPig Bait Company. And SacPig makes some of the most overly engineered baits that are out there, specifically a niche style that I like to throw of giant topwater walking baits, which are rats. And he's got two of them that I'm throwing, the Mischief and the Travel Mischief. This Travel being the smaller of the two. These things catch fish. Oh my God. Do yourself a favor and check out SacPig online and take a look at these baits for yourself. If you're interested in throwing them, you know, and maybe you don't have like a combo for something huge. If you got a frogging rod, that Travel, that Mischief Travel is great to try out for that rat. We have a great conversation too. We talk. We talk knots. Like I said, very spirited conversation. We'll get into it, and we get into the specifics of rat fishing, and it's really, really great. So enjoy that. That'll be right after this. We're going to see on the backside of that because we got Pizzagate shit to talk about because the plot just keeps getting thicker and thicker and thicker than a Snicker. All right? We'll see you guys in a bit. Don't go too far. Alrighty, guys, Bobby Roast Beef here, Jigs and Biggs. We got a brand new interview segment. I am so stoked right here, guys, because finally, after we jump through some hoops to kind of make this happen, we have the one and only Michael McAmis with us. Michael is the owner of SacPig Bait Company, based out on the Best Coast, the West Coast. He's out in California, and you may have heard me talking about specifically a couple of his baits that he's produced. You guys know I'm a sucker for a big rat profile wake bait, and his Mischief and Travel Mischief are absolutely amazing. I've recently been talking on the show about the more upsized, the standard size Mischief rat, and it is a beaut. We're going to talk conditions. We're going to talk all kinds of great stuff. Michael, thanks for coming on the show, man. We're glad to have you here. Welcome.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
I got to tell you, man, you have been in the circle of conversation for at least since about, I think, like, honestly, the first time, I would say at least since February, but maybe even the first time we ever had Zach and Josh from Dark Horse Tackle on the show, because I think you came up in that first conversation, and every time we hear the same phrase, anytime anybody's talking about SacPig, these baits are some of the most over-engineered baits on the planet. And it shows. And like, your gear is absolutely out of this world. And to give a little bit of backstory, so we connected because I had put up a YouTube video where I had been throwing the Travel Mischief, which is the more downsized rat that you produce, which is absolutely unbelievable. But for this bait, there is so much unbelievable thought that goes in here. And then after talking with you about that bait, I was only really aware of like just the outer layer of how well engineered this bait is. There's so much more to it. Let's go ahead and let's dive right into the baits. We'll talk about your fishing history. We'll catch up there. But why don't you tell me a little bit about the product, like the sort of the level of thought and care that you put into your stuff?
Yeah, frustration. Yeah. A lot of frustration. When you're fishing other baits and you're complicit with the problems that are going on, like, if one of the things like was the booty shaker, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Take that for an example. The booty shaker only exists because the conditions that I was facing at the time, and they just kept biting my tails off. So I was like, okay, I want them to bite a hook. So how do I actually make this happen and still have something back there and take away the tail? Because when you're on waters where they're actually biting rats, and they know how to kill rats, that's specific. They grab that tail and they grab the back leg. If you ever see like a bass that comes up and pins its mouth shut, watch for that, because in that area they're probably eating rats. So yeah, I took away the tail because I don't, this is a long tail. I'm actually not very fun. The only time I use the tails is when I'm using the assist cord application and I want a completely silent presentation. Yeah. Like, even with hardware, what bait doesn't have a split ring connection?
Of course.
None. But you take away that and now you're novel. And the assist cords dampen that sound. You're instantly different.
That's the one thing that I did notice specifically about that Mischief is that, it is truly, if you hold those hooks up against it and you shake it, you don't hear anything. But if you even shake a silent crankbait, you're still going to hear those hooks rattle. Like, it's not truly silent. And I think that's one of the things that makes your bait super unique. That and like, the one thing that I noticed and I've had this happen before with other rats that I've thrown, where it's a standard, screw-in eye with a split ring and then the hook. And while there's play in between that hook and the body of the bait, when you're throwing a big bait, you're giving them a lot of leverage to be able to throw that thing when they come up and thrash. with your hooks in the swivels and the ability for that to just spin, it completely eliminates that as a possibility. So I felt like the first time I was out with the more downsized, the travel mischief, I was getting, I think, a better hookup ratio because of that. And I was able to throw it in some pretty dicey spots. I was throwing it in way more weeds than I was typically comfortable, where I would throw like a BBZ or something like that. And they were just absolutely crushing it. And I was able to just rip them right out of the grass. It was unbelievable.
I love fishing mine. Sometimes when I was out designing these, the lake that I was fishing was completely covered in weeds.
Yeah.
And I designed these from 2 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. So I wasn't using light at all. Like, I did this in complete darkness.
Yeah.
So I did something that not only that I could tell when it had a weed on it.
Yeah.
200 feet out and I'm slow rolling these things. It takes me 5 minutes to get a rat in sometimes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I want to be able to feel everything, but I'm fishing in the weeds a lot too. And I noticed, and I can't prove it at all, but there's something about the assist cords that definitely help, and the giant bill. But yeah, you can fish these in grass. It's not 100%. Of course,
sure.
No treble hook bait is going to be 100, but it definitely comes through grass a whole lot better than a lot of baits that I use.
Yeah. No. I 100% agree. Let's talk about like fishing rats as a whole. First off, tell me your sort of backstory with rats. When did you kind of get hip to it, and how long have you been at it?
I've only been fishing for about 5 years, and I started Ugly Stick, Cinco, and that's just basically what I did. And then one day I met this guy fishing a spook, and I was like, oh, that looks really cool. That looks so fun.
Yep.
And I had one at home. It wasn't mine. It was a backpack left at my house that was ours, but it just had fishing gear in it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go throw this thing with him. And I got hooked on topwater. And then I started frogging. And as soon as I found the frog, I did nothing for an entire year. I didn't bring any other rod with me.
Yep.
All I used was frogs. And yeah, and then my buddy, we finally went out at night and snuck into some place with some giant rats and started fishing. And it was over from there. Like, there's nothing better than a big rat bite. Like,
oh yeah,
punching bite is a close second, but rat bites are definitely fun.
You know, and I like the fact that you were like, yeah, sometimes it takes me 5 minutes to get these in, because this is, even though it's a huge bait, it's, you know, especially if you're throwing one that doesn't have huge rattles or isn't clacking like crazy, it's a very slow presentation. And you really, I think, at least from my take, and tell me if I'm wrong, I like to use these as a way to call fish out of weeds, out of wood, things like that. So I won't throw it right into the cover necessarily, although I got pretty ballsy with that travel mischief. Throwing it like right up against the bank where there were weeds around docks and things, and then pulling it back out slow. But I've noticed that, like, I'll run mine often like over submerged grass, and I'll get huge bites. But I'm usually looking for very specific conditions too. Like, I'm looking for, ideally, in the perfect world, clouds with like a mirror glass top, because I feel like that back and forth motion is most effective there. How are you fishing them?
I am going out and finding areas. Now, where I live right now, the water changes every other day. So there's nothing that I can like lock on to. When I go to other places though, I'll go during the day and scout it out. And what I'm looking for is giant weed lines about 15 feet out with paths that ducks and swans have carved through it.
Okay. And all right.
You use those out, like you can cast into like the giant center of a weed bed and pull it out through those duck paths or the swan paths. And that was one of the tactics, but submerge grass, like you said, and then using the outer weed lines and just, you know, I'm not fishing the outer. If I'm fishing the outer weed line, I'm still going to make a 230-foot cast and bring it up to that weed line.
Yep.
But I use weed lines a lot to trigger bites. That's the end. They either get that there, or they lost their food, and you force them to make a bad decision. That's bait, because I'm not in the boat. I'm not in the boat that I think bass aren't just monsters and they're just mechanical machines. I think that slow retrieve, it's not that they're attracted to it. It's that you're just allowing them more time to make a mistake. And if you look at like some of the best people, Butch Brown, I cast it out and I just eat a sandwich. And then I reel in my bait after that. And it's a super slow retrieve. And it's not that they're attracted to the retrieve. I don't think. Yeah. I think you're just giving them ample time to make that decision. And the ones that are lashing out as a reaction bite, I still think there's thought behind that. Like when I hear reaction, I hear like it's an uncontrolled impulse.
Yeah. It's a split decision type.
I just don't think that they're impulsively eating now. I've seen some pretty strange behavior. Yeah. And it's been isolated in some ponds, but I have been fishing beds when I first started fishing. Yep. And I have straight up seen a female bass nose downing on my bait. And then the male come up and swim and punch her out of the way and look at the bait. They look at it together, and then he stops her from eating it. And then they both look at you and open their mouth and they're like, get the fuck away from me. And they connect the bait to the fisherman. Yeah. And this, I've seen, I'm not sure how dumb or smart they are. Yeah. But I don't think we give them enough credit in some situations.
Yeah, I will say that I do think that there is I feel a lot of times there are people who give way too much credit to animals in general. You know what I mean? Like they're not people. You know what I'm saying? Like just the brain isn't there. And people sometimes don't have the brains, let's be honest. But here's I will 100% agree with you that definitely they are visual. And if they see you, it's game over. You know what I mean? Like I'll give you an example. Yesterday I was out power fishing for trout. Sort of this thing I'm trying to develop. And it's a BFS tactic. It's actually completely the far end of what we're talking about right now. But I was throwing super tiny swim baits, 2 inches, and I was throwing them in crystal clear water, like gin clear. And this one spot was freshly stocked with rainbow trout. And so there were fish everywhere, just teeming all over the place. Every time there was a little opening or, there was any kind of like depth, teeming all over the place. Those rainbows weren't biting. I was catching the native brookies because they were hunting. And this is the time of year they start getting real amped up. They're ready to spawn. And I had this one brook trout dart out from this log jam at my bait and kind of turned to the side. And as he got closer to the boat, it was just like a nope moment, where he just turned off and was like, I'm out. And it was just because he saw me there. I'm convinced of it. I've had other fish too follow a bait, and as soon as they get in eyesight, they're like, bye. So I do think that there's for sure, if nothing else, even if it's not like a conscious sort of thing, it's a reaction in the sense that they're like, that's alien to me. I'm out of here. Like it almost makes them realize that bait is not, we all try to match the hatch to a certain degree. And I think that they'll look at it and say just like, okay, nope, that's not real. That motherfucker is not real. Like one of those things,
Yeah. And we pass genetics on whatever we catch them on. Yeah. You're horrifying them. Like this is equivalent to getting PTSD. You got caught by an alien, shoved in a box, transported somewhere else, and they're taking, that's a horrific experience for any animal. And we're thinking that those genetics aren't being passed on. That entire experience is encoded and passed on to the children, and the children are like, oh no, instinctively, mom bit that worm last time, and I'm not biting that. And have you ever seen the shock boats that go around and then they survey all the ponds?
Mm-hmm.
There's fish that are uncatchable. They fully admit that there's 10, 12 pounders out there that have never been caught.
Yep.
Ever.
Yeah.
And they're just uncatchable fish. And the ones that we're catching, I'm not saying they're stupid.
Yeah.
But they may not have had the genetic profile, or it may not, the instances of catching just may not have been high enough.
Or, and you make a good point. You make a good point about genetics, but even just the experience I have had in situations where water was clear enough, where I've had a fish on and have been multiple other fish right there that are basically watching their cousin or whatever get lifted out of the water. And those fish, I feel, are going to be more cautious. And maybe those are the ones that ultimately develop to be those 10 pounders. Because I'm a firm believer that every single body of water you're in has a giant. It's just, can you catch it?
Not just a giant. They're all different. Yeah. Every pond has its own genetic line. Mm-hmm. They've been conditioned from certain baits in a very specific way. And they all fish differently, and they all have different preferences.
Yeah.
And that alone is like, okay, they learn by their environment. They're not just fish.
Yeah.
They're obviously learning somehow. And they can be conditioned to, when you hear trout eater, it's not because they bit a trout swim bait. It's because they have the genetics to want to eat trout.
Yep.
So if you can find those genetics, you want to target those genetics, of course.
It's bananas to me. So I want to dive a little bit into your website here. Like, you've got a variety of baits that are available. The Mischief series of rats, the Travel 2-piece, the Mischief 2-piece. That sucker's got to clack like a son of a bitch. Looking at the way it's jointed together.
Oh yeah. Well, it actually doesn't clack at all.
Oh, really?
I know it's super strange, but most of the sound is the actual joint screws.
The connection, no kidding.
This moves back and forth, but this back piece doesn't move side to side. It just.
And actually, now that you mention it, that's a lot of space between the front and the second one. So that's a lot of freedom. They probably don't get, like, a lot of my baits that there's one from Mr. Tightlines. It's called a Bruce Gillis, right? It's a big sunfish style wake bait. It's huge, but it's got a double joint on there, and it's much the gap in between those two pieces. But when it swings, it's like knocking on a door. That's why I like to throw it, because it's so loud. And if you've got to call fish out, then I've caught some absolute tanks on that sucker. It's got teeth marks all over it. It's a mess. But also, there's wear on those joints, on those two pieces where they connect. Overall, like, the paint has kind of worn, it's gotten rough. That probably doesn't happen with the Mischief 2-piece, does it? They don't make contact.
They really don't make contact unless you're kind of walking it. But it's also a different sound too. So it's not, if I were to hit it together, it kind of sounds like wood, but they don't hear that very often either. And also, like, I just, when you're fishing topwater baits that are walking, having an erratic action like this, like if this was a spook, you're fishing the spook and it's darting left and right. What is that back hook doing every single time you pull on that, right? You're moving it so erratically. Yeah. And I found that just when I'm fishing my baits, when I was walking them a lot, they'd miss. And spooks don't have a very good hookup ratio either, but you're moving that back hook so much. And I'm sure you've seen striper videos and ocean videos of people just bringing in, they're working the bait, but the fish just keep missing. And all they have to do is let it sit still. Yeah. And they'll get the bite. But when it shimmies, that back hook doesn't move. It really, at all. Right. So it stays put, like it in the water, it stays put exactly where I want it, rather than having that erratic action. That's slick. Again, over engineered. That's like so unbelievably like
considerate for that one presentation. You know, I can't think of another bait that kind of would react that way. I haven't seen one yet. I mean, maybe they're out there, but that's nuts.
It's just the walking style baits. And I used to be, I fished a spook for like 5 months straight when I found that spook. And yeah, that I get more bites sitting still after I work it I get more hookups, not bites.
Yeah.
The hookup ratio goes up.
I'll have to play around with that because I'm a slow roller with these wake baits, but I go in a continuous line because I guess I've conditioned myself to think that if I stop, and I've seen this before where when I'm fishing a spook is a perfect example, where if I stop, they'll get too good of a look at it and then turn off. Like it's more of the action that I'm trying to draw them in. Maybe I'm missing the boat here. Maybe I need to do a little bit more pausing here and there, like around if I get up near like a pad or something, like something that would logistically make sense. Or are you just stopping just throughout the retrieve?
At key spots.
Yeah.
But I don't walk my baits anymore. When I was doing it, I just had a rule, no more than 2 pops at a time. Yeah. And because when it would land, I could pop, and I was exploring. I wasn't really into it, but I couldn't help but notice that they just missed so much more often when I was sitting there walking the bait. And when you're fishing at night, I can't see them either. So I even frogs at night. Like I don't walk frogs at night either, which is one of my favorite. I use like a tackle sprinkler instead.
Oh yeah,
and
that's a great.
And
frog,
I'll just, dude, it's one of the best. It's probably the most well designed frog on. Besides the little flappy tail, the internals, the nose will never come out on you. Just the way that the internals are set up, which is huge because I blew up tons of frogs with the nose pulling out, and then your frog's done. As soon as it comes through once, it's going to come through more and more and more, and it shatters the frog from internal. But
that's freaking insane.
What? Yeah. So straight retrieves. And also, like, have you seen animals in the water? Like, have you seen birds fall in the water, or lizards, or even rats? Like, have you seen them swimming?
Yeah, like muskrats. I see them all the time.
They're very consistent.
Yeah.
So I think like even struggling birds, they don't like go slow and then start powering through the next set of beat. Like it's a super consistent motion for all these animals.
Yeah.
And I think just being consistent, like if you're going to pause once, pause again. But if you're not going to pause,
just keep it going.
This is the hard one. And this is, I've been trying to convince people for this for a long time. If you're topwater fishing, don't set the hook. There is absolutely no reason to set the hook on these fish. And one of the biggest reasons is when you set the hook, if they miss your bait,
you're pulling it away.
That bait's out of the strike. You pull it right away from them. And I'm telling you, if you pause it or just don't even acknowledge it and just keep doing the thing that attracted the fish in the first place, like you don't get a bite and then start doing something super erratic. Like they don't panic. And I think being consistent is way more important than doing erratic things on top of the water. But erratic may work sometimes, but it doesn't work consistently.
Now let's talk.
I like consistency.
I'm curious now. I want you to judge my big swim bait setup if you could.
Honestly, I don't think I can.
Really?
I don't know enough about it. Dude, I'm so far out of this industry while I'm in it. It's
gotcha.
It's yeah.
So what
like I have what I use.
And that's the thing. My take is always like use what you use and what makes sense for you with your style of fishing. So like I have for baits that are like 2 ounces and over, I usually it's a Cash and Icon. I think it's a 7-11 extra heavy, moderate fast, right? It's a great rod. I love the rod. I think it's actually ideal for everything that I'm throwing. And it's the reel that I'm using is a Concept A 300 from 13 Fishing, but it's an 8-speed. I like a faster reel most of the time, and I've noticed something this year. Full disclosure, I lost my moving bait combo, my go-to moving bait combo, over the edge of the boat when I was fishing the first time out with one of my buddies, netting his fish. Lost this combo, and I had to put something else together, so I did. And I made the decision, instead of throwing with a 7-speed reel, I would get a 6. And I've noticed an infinitely better sort of situation, and with those slower baits like the wake baits, I'm wondering if maybe I need to slow down that reel. Like, I have no issue slowing down at a snail's pace, and it seems to be working for me overall, but I'm just not 100% sure. The other thing too is I'm throwing my wake baits on 20-pound mono, and I know you and I had talked about line and early on when we first started talking. Should I make a switch to braid instead and go braid to a mono leader?
Braid to mono is by far the best. Period.
Yeah.
Straight braid is by far the worst thing that you can use for any topwater application.
Yep.
And mono is a close and lazy second.
Yeah.
If you want to be lazy and not tie an FG every morning.
Yep.
And I'm coming from I'm a video gamer, kind of masquerading as a fisherman.
Yep.
I'm like high level gameplay. I like optimizing. I don't want to go out with a uni knot because it's easier to tie.
Yeah.
I'm going out with my FG every morning.
Yep.
I don't even want, I don't understand the logic behind getting a $60,000 bass boat, $40,000 worth of baits and rods.
Yep.
And, you're going to go out and you're going to skimp on the one thing between you and your fish. You don't want to learn how to tie that knot because it's too hard. Like, do you really want your uni to uni? Do you want to test its true potential on your first 10-pounder? I don't think so.
Yeah.
And I would never go out with anything less than what the best possibility thing I can do. I can totally understand if you're on the water and you don't want to tie an FG and you're almost done. Yeah, uni to uni is going to work temporarily. But if you have time to prep, tie the FG with the Rizzuto finish. Like, there's no way. The excuses don't add up to everything else you're doing.
Yeah.
Like the time and the time and effort.
Yeah. I think it also depends too on the application when it comes to knots, because like I am a double uni guy. But I don't throw leaders on those big topwaters. I usually go either full braid or straight mono. Just because I'm like, I don't really necessarily, maybe it's something I need to play around with a little bit depending on the rod selection, but my take on it has always been like, so a uni to uni, it's never been a strength thing because you have a knot pulling on another knot. You know what I mean? Pulling against one another. So I don't worry about it breaking with a double uni, especially using like 20-pound mono to large braid. With something like that, I think the issue is having enough leader line to make it effective to have, because the more line you have, the more stretch you have with that mono if you're throwing something topwater, and having that knot go down the guides. Because at that point, the knot is so large, and an FG is just going to be much more compact. Like, I think that's when it comes to an FG knot. And I think you're right. Like, tying it on the water sucks. I don't tie it at all just because it's so time consuming. But like on my drop shot rod, I have 20 feet of leader on my drop shot rod, but that double uni zips right through with no problem. I can reel that sucker right onto the spool, and it's not an issue. But I think when you're talking about 20-pound braid and 40-pound, what am I saying? 20-pound braid. When you're talking 40 or 50-pound braid on your reel and 20-pound mono is enormous. It's so
I
thick.
use 80 to 30.
80 to 30. Holy fuck. Oh my God.
I broke off in the weeds.
Yeah.
You don't want to know how much I broke 80-pound braid trying to get my rats out of the weeds.
Yeah.
California is of course, if I'm on a boat
Different animal.
I wouldn't have the need. I wouldn't ever use a leader if I was on a boat. I think I just use straight mono all the time.
Yeah.
There's no point, but
especially if you're on a kayak, because sometimes that boat is the give. You know?
Yes. I've talked with some kayak people. They like using straight braid just for the fact that you're moving.
Yeah.
I'm not moving on the bank. When I don't set into the fish, I reel into them, but I ain't gonna freaking give.
Yeah.
So I do like the line to give a little bit, but speaking like you don't even need a long leader. You just need 8 inches of leader just to stop the braid from getting tangled up in the front hook.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
That is the biggest reason why I don't like braid is it just gets tangled in the front hook way more often.
Yep.
Do you stop cast? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like stop casting?
Cassie, you're talking about stopping the spool with your thumb like that?
Stopping it while it's in the air so it pulls out all the slack. And
I see what you're saying.
If the bait is going away, you stop it and it pulls out the slack and it actually faces the bait.
Spins it toward you. Yeah.
Yeah. And the big mischiefs, like it's on the website. You kind of have to do it to take advantage of how low these hooks are hanging and but learning a skill to pick up a higher hookup ratio is worth it in my opinion.
No, I agree with that. And it's one of the first things I tell everybody. I go, that especially if it's learning how to fish, and we're working on a beginner series of like, this is what you should do if you want to get into this. Like, this is the direction to go. One of the first things I'm going to tell folks is learn a couple of knots. I don't care what the fuck they are, but just learn a couple of knots so that you, if nothing else, have a good foundation to start from, and then fuck around. If it's easier to.
You can use a uni knot, and I've tested all these to exhaustion. Uni knot works on everything. I'm not saying it's the best for every application. Yeah. But it's going to get you way high up there in the percentiles, no matter what line you're using. If you're using a fluorocarbon, don't tie a San Diego jam, tie a uni knot instead. If you're using mono, tie a San Diego jam. It's not even like the best knot doesn't even work across all the applications.
No.
And you're gonna if you're using, and another thing about the uni to uni that you were talking about going through the guides. If you're using fluorocarbon, you're actually degrading that knot every single time it goes through the guides. That knot is hitting, and you are slowly degrading those wraps on the knot. The FG doesn't have that problem because it's basically the finger trap.
It's self-contained.
It's all braid. It's self-contained and all braid. And you did have to use a leader knot that you don't really want to like focus on tying. The Alberto is like the crazy Alberto is a close second to the FG. It's a very nice knot, and
it's much easier to tie too. Like something like that.
I don't think so.
I
got my FG down to about 1 minute and 12 seconds.
That's nuts. So it's funny because knots are like, it's like food. Everybody likes their stuff a certain way. You know what I mean? Tastes are just personal. I have a buddy of mine who cannot, for the life of him, tie a double uni. He cannot do it. But he'll throw it. What is it? The Albright? I think he uses the Albright as his leader to braid. And he's like, he just can't do it. This is also the same guy who got in my boat as I was parking the truck, went to the back to rig, and floated off of the bank, stranding himself. And there was a whole other story. But, for the life of, and there's just knots that people, they prefer, Like, I know there is a nation of anglers out there that are just like the Palomar for everything, And I tie it a lot. I'll bet you I tie the Palomar probably about as my direct line to lure most of the time. A big exception is a loop knot.
This whole knot thing, I talked to a lot of people, and I couldn't help but notice that it's not preference. It's anger. Like it gets down to the point
that's a good
where
point. Yeah.
It's it's almost primal. It's like this knot has fed my family. Not catch fish, not good, not change knot.
Yep.
Like it's like straight up caveman, and they're used to it. It's comfortable.
Yeah.
It's worked for them in the past, and exploring something new could be dangerous, or it could not work, or I may lose that fish that feeds my family. Like it seems to be a primal thing to get this consistency down, and getting them to break that impulse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I haven't been very successful at it. So
I
people
think
really dig in.
They do. You're right. And I think you could almost say the same thing when it comes to that argument of like, oh, why do you have to use a bait caster? I can do everything I need to do with a spinning rod. And while like to a certain point, that's 100% true. There are benefits. These are tools. You know what I mean? And knots are tools. You know, I mean, really, they're just super basic, you know?
Yeah. But it matters because that's the only thing keeping you and your fish. And I would say, I would even go out to say that it's one of the things that matters. You can sleep in late.
Yeah.
You can get caught in traffic, but nothing is going to stop that knot from breaking if you tie it poorly.
Yeah.
Like you should always, your knot, you take care of your fishing line and tie the best knots you possibly can. Because in reality, that is the thing.
Yeah.
That's your connection. So why not do the best you possibly can?
Oh, no, I agree. So this is a crazy departure, but I want you to do me a favor and explain, because I don't really even have a full understanding of it. Explain to me what micro balloons are all about.
Resin sinks naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Micro balloons are tiny spheres and they float. That's how we get flotation in our resin. That's all. That's
it, huh? It's crazy.
That's it.
Huh.
It's filler. My micro balloons, I'm the only one that actually sells my micro balloons in the United States. No one else has a selene coating on their microspheres. So they mechanically bond to the resin, and it really weakens the resin.
Oh.
And so they're just kind of suspended when you pour these.
Mm-hmm.
They're just kind of floating around in there. And mine actually help a chemical process for them to bind together. So, okay, if you're using resin and you're using a microsphere that isn't mine, there's only a certain amount that you can add before you start destroying the structure of your bait to the point where you can break it in half with your hand.
Oh, really?
Like you actually can degrade the strength so much.
Wow.
By adding a high amount of microspheres, but mine doesn't degrade. And most of them, it's different for every microsphere in resin. So I'm not going to give super exact numbers, but if you go to like 17% by weight with old Alumilite spheres, you can break that bait in half by your hand. But mine, I'm able to go up to 44 to 48. And it just instantly makes the resin 2 times as strong. Like it doesn't matter what application you're using. If you're using resin, just instantly 2 times as strong.
That's awesome.
So it maintains structural integrity. However, you can also achieve higher flotation rates, which can change your bait drastically. We were kind of in this spot to where glide baits are 8 and topwater baits are 18. Like in anything in between we can use. And if you went over it, you couldn't pour it because it's too thick. And if you went over, you could break your bait and it loses its structure. That vice is gone.
Yeah.
To me, none of my baits don't have weights in them. I don't balance, and my baits are balanced by microspheres and the hardware that actually goes in them.
That's what I was going to say, the hardware.
They flip right over. They don't have any problems.
No kidding.
But no balancing weights whatsoever. But if you're using glide baits, a lot of people pour a heavier. Let me get one real quick. So this section of the bait, all down here, will be a denser microsphere and resin mixture.
Gotcha.
And then up on top is a more buoyant mixture. That's just the ballast that they put in sometimes.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So that way when you cast it, it's going to right itself the right way every time. That makes total sense.
It's mainly a glide bait thing, but people do use them on crankdowns because to get the glide bait perfectly even, and they want a really wide glide, that's one of the ways that they do that.
No, that makes sense. Let's talk baits that like confidence baits and techniques that you also like aside from fishing, topwater rats, which is the context we're having here, but like let's figure out what else do you like to fish? Like what do you lean on when the bite's really tough?
I carry my spinning rod everywhere I go with me, man.
Hell yeah, dude.
I'm not a swim bait only guy. If I want to get fish, I want to catch fish.
Yep.
I'll do anything I have to, but I really like using. Remember, I'm in California. There is no such thing as fishing open hooks from the bank.
Oh yeah.
So anything that I'm using, it has to be EWG or some other but the Harmony Fishing makes this tungsten EWG Ned rig.
Oh, I've used them. Yeah.
Oh, I absolutely love using those EWG Ned rigs. And I use chicken rigs a lot. Pretty much primarily that's what I'm fishing is my chicken rigs.
Yeah. Chicken rig is effective. It really is. I got a buddy out here that swears by it. Even at the tournament level. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, not a lot of people like rigging up Nico rigs.
Yep.
So it's just, I think that it's just, that one more step. It's like, I'm just going to fish a Senko or a wacky rig instead.
Yep.
But in reality, a Nico rig is just a front weighted wacky rig.
Pretty much.
There's not much of a difference. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so funny too. Like people are always trying to reinvent the wacky. And I mean, not for anything. I think it's great. Any way that you can sort of fool around with it. I just got in my Dark Horse tackle box this week from Core Tackle. I think they call it the Wacky Shot. It's basically a wacky hook with a weight and a screw lock on there, so you can actually just screw in the stick bait, and it stays completely separate from the hook. They go in and they bite the hook, and the stick baits. I mean, I haven't hooked up on it yet, but I'm assuming it's barely even going to touch their mouth. Like that could save you a lot of plastics, Now, if they made a weedless version with that little wire weed guard on there, then I think we're talking. Because then you can throw that in some grassy situations and not worry about it, Well, I think that's just going to take some time. Core Tackle's got some crazy shit coming out. Like, they really just do.
I'll have to check them out. Yeah. I've experimented with things like that before. I have a 4-year-old YouTube video up of me doing the exact same thing, but with an EWG hook. And not just an EWG, but taking the silicone wacky things and using that as the base, like where you would, it's hard to explain, but at the very top of the EWG where you would tie, you can actually just put it on the worm and it doesn't stick in the worm. So it saves some plastic. Yeah. Also, like if people have you ever thought of buying a aluminum mold and just saving all your worms and shooting your own?
I've considered that in the past. To tell you the truth, I don't use stick baits that often. I really don't. I probably go through, like I bought like a 30 pack of like green pumpkin stick baits, and I still have probably 15 in there. And that was 3 years ago. And green pumpkins, that's my go-to. Like I've got some June bug and some black blue flake, and even some white ones. But I really don't I usually don't even really consider even molding anything. If I was going to mold anything, I would mold paddle tail swim baits. That is one of my go-to confidence baits.
Have you seen the rat one that we're doing right now?
No.
No?
No.
Oh, You gotta hop on. Hold on a second.
I gotta check this thing out.
So I'm actually these are way different, dude. These are but full shot. It's about 4.5 inches. Let me see if I can. They have little feet and ears, but this I'm making a floating version of one of these. And I know there isn't that many floating plastics out there, but I've been having a shitload of fun fishing these.
Oh, I bet.
Just dragging them over the weeds. It floats without the weight, but I'm using one with the belly weight, so just kind of barely. But if you reel, it stays right under the surface.
Yeah.
The whole time it stays right under the surface. And I'm kind of fishing these like a frog.
Yep.
That can sink and swim.
It's like a
just
buzz toad almost.
It over the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just dropping it over the edge of those weeds and swimming it. And I'm killing them on it. I absolutely love them.
That, in my opinion, that is the kind of shit that is really gonna make fishing, like, it's that level of innovation that we need. You know what I mean? Like, get creative and do some, because I'll tell you, I'm all about that. I love a buzz toad. You know, there's certain specific situations like when they're hitting topwater, but I want to get more subtle. Like, that's a great one. And a floating one, I think, is key. Like, there's a Z-Man in their plastic floats, which is fantastic. I don't rig them the right way. I usually use just a 5-aught EWG. But what I like about that, what you've got over there, is that would be an insane buzzbait trailer.
I have actually never fished a buzzbait in my entire. I haven't ever fished a buzzbait.
Oh my god, dude, you would love it. You would love it. Like,
I got streamlined so fast. So I have one.
Yep.
And I the only reason I have it is because it's a very memorable day.
Oh yeah.
And it wasn't mine. I found it after a forest fire.
Oh wow.
So I'm keeping that there. But yeah, I never got to fit. They're too loud. And
oh yeah, they're super loud.
After fishing, and I'm not saying they don't work, of course.
Oh yeah.
But when I was fishing, I like to call it the teacher lake or the mother lake.
Mm-hmm.
These small ponds, they acclimate. They acclimate at a rate that you would never think that they would know a bait the second day you're throwing it, the entire pond. But they do. They stop biting, and it never works again.
And I think that there's ebbs and flows. Like, I feel like now, and I mean, maybe I'm just talking out of my ass here, which is quite possible. And let's be honest, that's what this podcast is all about, just sharing ideas. But like, for, I would say the last, we'll say 6 or 7 years, the spinnerbait has kind of taken a backseat a little bit. Like, the bladed jig has kind of come to the forefront as that single hook moving presentation. You want something that's got some vibration, that's going to get some attention. That presentation is going to be the go-to. And for a lot of people, it is. And this year, I worked on trying to build my confidence with that. But I have noticed that the spinnerbait bite, I've caught a lot of fish on spinnerbaits in the last 2 years, 3 years, and I only really kind of started building confidence with them. But I do feel like there's ebbs and flows. Like, they might not see something for a little while, and then maybe it's a new generation of fish, or something, and they're not accustomed to it. So maybe it takes a handful of years for them to kind of catch up to speed or something. But I do feel like you'll see, like, things kind of have a renaissance for presentations. I do think that someday the wacky rig is going to be like, okay, they will not bite this. Like, it's just game over. But maybe it's going to become more of like, but the shaky head is like, that's where it's at right now. Like, they're just all about it. And it's a bad example because you have one that's primary action is on the fall and one's primary action is on the bottom. Just two totally different things.
I don't think it's bad at all, man.
Yeah. I mean, especially very shallow water.
You're conditioning them, period. Like, you can't help but condition them. And like, did you keep up with like the big presence of like the B.A.S.S 250 when it first came out?
A little bit, yeah.
Everybody was using it. Guess what doesn't work anymore?
Yeah. The B.A.S.S 250.
Guess what will work in 7 years, just like it did again?
Yeah.
Let all those fish die. They're not going to see it. They're not going to bite it for a long time. And yeah, there will be a resurgence in popular. It's not popular. The more popular your bait, the more people presenting it, the more people fishing it, the less it's going to work. Period.
The Whopper Plopper is a perfect example with that. Like,
I hate them. I hate them.
Really?
I hate, dude, they shut, when you're fishing these small bodies of water, the moment that it lands, the entire ponds turn off.
It's
over.
Is it a whopper plopper specifically, or are you talking about prop baits in general, like the Chopo and all the other stuff?
I think anything that sounds like a whopper plop. Yeah.
Really?
And I've never seen someone catch a fish on it. I've caught one on it. Yeah. But as soon as the people show up, as soon as that thing hits the water, the bite's gone. The fish instantly turn off in the small ponds.
I'll have to tell my buddy
that I hate the bait. It's that I hate what the bait does to the fish.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty anti whopper.
Go ahead and explain that a little bit. What's your take on that? What's it do to the fish? Is it the conditioning thing, or is it the way that they bite it or something?
I think it's just so loud, and they know there's too many people fishing it, and they know what's coming.
Yeah.
There's a reason I'm fishing at 2:00, and it's because the mother lake, whenever you go during the day, we call them fence posts, and it's people spaced evenly out 15 feet around the entire pond, throwing swim baits, whopper ploppers over. And I've seen people throw the same bait for an hour and a half without ever moving. Like, they will just sit there and throw the same baits and presentations
in the same spot.
It creates this environment to where the fish just shut off.
Yeah.
So when are they going to eat? At 2 a.m. when nobody is around and no one is fishing. Those fish get comfortable. They flip to a nighttime feeding schedule, and you can go in and just wreak havoc on them because they have no idea what's about to hit them.
Yeah.
Like, they know during the day, all right, I'm out. I'm done. I'm just going to go sleep. I'm not going to get anything.
Yep.
You can go punch them up, but you can't ever, like, that lake is just very notorious for being ultra pressured.
Yeah.
And they've acclimated to everything that I've thrown, but the one piece with the syscords.
Yeah.
I was able to catch them on this. No sound worked, which is why I'm very partial to no sound or as a little sound as possible.
Yeah.
It's just worked for me consistently on every body of water. The 2-piece catches bigger fish, but if I'm out, I just kind of want to catch fish sometimes.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Who doesn't? I like the way you said that too. You're like, no sound or as little sound as possible, because I feel like oftentimes, and this I think goes for everything, like, if humans love to put things in boxes, and they love to be divisive, and say this is this, and so this must be that. When it comes to sound profile or vibration or water displacement or whatever element you want to look at, there's a spectrum there. You can have something that's crazy loud, like a huge bladed jig, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to bite a bladed jig. Like, if that's too much, like, you could throw a downsized, more subtle bladed jig that's got a completely different sound, or take that conventional size, like a half ounce, and different brands, because they do have different sounds, and it sucks to look at it like this, because then you're like, well, shit, now I have to buy every single freaking brand and cut off and retie constantly to figure this out. But that's the subtlety, and sometimes it's just about creating your own spectrum. So, like, I've got something that's super aggressive and loud. Maybe that's your conventional bladed jig. And then you've got something a little bit more downsized. And then you're like, well, shit, they're not hitting that. Let's throw a swim jig in place. Or if it's open water and you don't have the cover, that you could snag up on, throw a finesse swim bait, a 4-inch paddle tail on an open hook jig head. Maybe that's subtle enough. And I feel like when it comes to sound, people overlook that. So, like, I'll give you for instance, I have a friend of mine who's like, if they're not biting this crank with rattles, I'm going to throw a silent crank. And I'm like, maybe a one knocker's the move,
Maybe.
Like, maybe that in between, or it's like they'll throw something with rattles and then something silent, and they're just like, it's not a crankbait bite, I guess. And yeah, I mean, they very well might be right, but maybe it's that one little difference right there. That one knocker is going to stand apart because they've heard a million BBs all their life, and that lower frequency is just going to get their attention or call them out.
What I did was I just looked paid very close attention what other people were using and saying, and just ran the opposite way. And that works. Like if you know that lake gets fished hard with Senkos, don't throw a Senko. Senkos. Yeah, don't Senkos. But you did bring up something that I want to touch on, and I think a lot of this has to do with this. And so the spooks stopped working. So what did we do? We went and got a snake. Snake worked. Snake stopped working. So we went and got a turtle. Turtle stopped working. But there's a theme going on here. Something is happening. Yep. And it's the presentation of novelty. Yeah. Novelty hitters. So just and I actually hold this when people are like, how can I catch more fish? Throw something novel. That is like the number one thing I can say besides waking up early and getting there first. Like, if you want to catch more fish, getting there first is like you have to be there first if it's a pond. If someone else walks that pond, your bite's gone. Yep. Or the bite that you're targeting is already gone. But just being different matters more than any bait. And I'm going out on a limb and saying that, but I truly think that just not doing the same thing as everybody else. Everybody wants a 2-piece walking bait. Yeah, everybody wants that loud. They want that loud clack, and I've heard it over and over. But silent works better, just because people don't throw it. Though. Yeah, it doesn't. It's not like preferred by the fish.
No, no, not at all.
Yeah, it's just for the fact that it's something new. And they've never heard it before. It's just something you're just introducing novelty. So you have to be like, okay, how many guys have thrown that crankbait previously? Maybe the silent one. Maybe a lot of people really like using rattles and they want to throw that silent crankbait. Or like it's not just the BBs. I think that like the cotton cordels and stuff. Yeah, they were engineered. When the guy engineering them got a microphone and put it in the water and got the frequencies of the fish swimming around, and then added a specific amount of BBs into the cotton cordels to achieve the same sound frequency as the fish swimming. So if you don't have shad, and it doesn't outright say this on the package, but there's got to be sound frequencies for certain fish in your lake. Oh yeah. And you can, but the baits really aren't sold like that either. So it's definitely an interesting, like bladed jigs. It's not it's a vibration, which also it's a frequency. Sure. So what frequency is that bladed jig giving off? And is it similar to the fish that your fish that they're predating on? Yeah. So
It's wild. I had a conversation recently. I was on the boat with one of the Dark Horse Tackle team members, Adam Blomeke, and we were fishing, and he said something that I thought was amazing. I was telling him, I was like, the beauty about fishing, and I've said it on this show about a million times, is that fishing is really one of the few things in life that is a ratio that is 1 part science and 1 part art at the same time. And within there's something very unique about it. So you've got this situation where we hear it all the time. Match the hatch, but show them something different. Both of those things work in their prospective settings. You know what I mean? And you can, like I said, folks get super divisive and they like to put themselves in boxes like, oh, I try to match the hatch all the time. And Adam said something really unique. He goes, what if you could do both? And he goes, match the hatch, but show them something they haven't seen a million times. So maybe you're showing them, a perch pattern. Like I like to fish a lot of perch patterns up here. It's a main forage. But at the same time, maybe you're doing it with a bait, like a custom painted crankbait that they're not used to seeing that exact color. They're not used to seeing there's something different enough. So he's like, yeah, maybe you can do both. Maybe you're matching the hatch by choosing a presentation that matches what they're feeding, the size profile, the color profile, all that stuff. But at the same time, doing it in a way where it stands apart a little bit, like it's just different enough. Maybe that perch pattern has like bleeding gills painted on it or something like that. And that red is just enough to trigger them, Something like that. And I thought that was really interesting. And I feel like that speaks a lot to the bait makers like yourself that are using innovation to create stuff that's fresh and unique, and that people, if they arm themselves with it out on the water, they can achieve, both, exactly what they're looking for. I don't know.
For sure.
Yeah.
And
maybe that edible just kicked. I don't know, man. But
that's another reason too why I have a booty shaker that sounds like that. Oh, hold on.
I'm not hearing any of those.
Okay.
I think it. Yeah, no, you know what it is? I think you have a filter and it's blocking it, but you have a variety of sounds, though.
Correct. There's a variety of different media inside of these. So you can fish them for a week with the tail and then have a whole new bait for $10.
Yep.
That's a whole different sound profile.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can buy 3 of these, and then you have one bait that has 3 different sound profiles.
Yep.
And you can cycle.
Yeah.
So you can just endlessly cycle them. So you have to really watch it and pay attention. You don't want to condition the fish forever.
No,
but
exactly,
just getting a different sound profile. Yeah, that's it. Again, it's just introducing novelty to something that you're fishing. It's something different. And, I value it quite a bit. I love novelty.
I didn't even consider it. I have right now that mischief that I'm throwing. It's since it arrived, it's been tied on my big swim bait rod, and I'm going with it. The booty shaker is in my truck, and I need to put it on the boat, so this way I can change it out and give it its due. Because I'm a big fan of the tails. I did have. Oh no! Right here on my desk. Where the hell did it go? I have the tail to one of the first BBZ rats I've ever used before. Over here, and it fell off. And for the longest time, I wasn't throwing it because of the tail. And people tell me all the time, "Don't worry about the tail. Don't worry about the tail. Don't use it." And it's true. Since then, I've hooked up on fish with it. But I'm a believer in that tail because of that more natural sort of appearance. Like that's how it would look. Like I said, muskrats. I see muskrats all the time, or in and around the rivers around here, and that tail has a similar motion. When I think by having that booty shaker handy, and I think that if you're going to make the investment in one of your rats, I think the idea of having that as an option, because all you need is a pair of split ring pliers to put that sucker on, I
would recommend a pair of jeweler's pliers instead.
Jeweler pliers, okay.
They're a little different, but it's 2 fine points.
Oh,
it's a tapering point.
Yep.
And this allows you to really get up in its butthole and grab it. I use jeweler's pliers.
I'm so glad that I have the video here and you held that up because that's gonna be the clip, right? It's gonna get people to listen to this. That is the most Jigs and Bigs thing you've said in this show.
I'm a pretty serious person most of the time.
Yeah. But that's perfect.
Opportunity.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I do. I think that the booty shaker is just it's unbelievable. But the fact that you can take a bait and go from essentially silent to now something that's going to gather some attention with sound is huge. And the fact that you've got the ability to change them out with different sounds. Like, guys, if you're looking to throw a rat, and you want to get into this, whether you want to start a little bit smaller and go with the travel mischief, or you want to go with a 2-piece, like, I'm telling you that SacPig Baits is like a great starting point because of the variety and also the quality. God, I don't mean to freaking, blow a bunch of smoke up everybody's ass, but it's just the truth, man. I'm a believer.
I put a lot of time and I'll tell you how much time so I've spent 7 months going in and out about 6 hours a day. And I truly mean this. There was a point where I was developing these baits over the course of 3 years. I'd say I was on the water. I maybe missed 20 days a year.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
So I may have been fishing for 5 years.
Yeah.
But I've already accumulated 5,000 hours.
Yeah.
And whenever I'm trying to learn something, really losing myself and focusing and doing, if you get out one time a week, you may not notice the subtleties that are going on, the water changes, the consistencies. Whenever you really dive into something hardcore and you're learning it, the more you do it, the more you learn. And I think you actually get a better look. And I think this is universal. Like if you do something once a week compared to 5 times a week,
different story.
You're just going to learn. Yeah. You're going to learn this information differently. And fishing that frog for a year straight during the winter and the heat and during the summer, I've learned that I actually prefer cold weather for my topwater bite rather than hot weather for my topwater bite. And that only comes from fishing 2 feet off the bank.
Yeah.
So everywhere I went with me for a long time, I bring that frog rod and my rat rod. I sit 30 feet back. I fish the spot that I'm going to walk up to.
Mm-hmm.
And then I walk up to the spot.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how many 5-pounders I have caught fishing the spot that I'm going to walk up to.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's where they are.
Yep.
And, another thing that I noticed is that people, if you're like in a cove or something like that, people want to fish the opposite side of the cove. They want to fish the opposite bank. But when you're fishing from a boat, where the person standing on the bank is the best spot. So you have this greener grass thing going on. So why not the spot in front of you? That's probably a better spot than wherever you're going to cast. So that's one of my rules at nighttime is I'm going to fish wherever I'm going to walk first, and then I'm going to walk up. And that's a rule of mine. I never vary from that rule either. I always make sure I do that. And again, this is bank fishing only.
Yeah.
And if you are fishing rats, I do think fishing from the bank.
Yep.
Unless you're like rolling up with the boat and turning it completely sideways and getting the same cast parallel.
Yeah, exactly.
As I'm getting. Rats don't swim out from the bank to the middle.
They don't.
They swim from outside to the bank.
Yeah.
And I think it's the most natural presentation for when you're doing it. But fishing parallel, dude, like
you get the most percentage, the highest percentage. Yeah.
It's the best. Fishing out weed, like you said, submerged weed beds and parallel. This may just be like a Sacramento, California thing, but my biggest fish have also come during the most freezing temperatures. And it's because I have a feeling, I'm not saying it's for sure, but those smaller fish don't move up when it's cold because they can't handle the colder water.
Yeah.
And that allows those big fish free, like they are free to roam anywhere on that bank.
Yeah.
And you're sitting in water right now with their fin out.
Yep.
They super shallow water. I've caught some that couldn't even swim away. Like they bite my frog when I'm reeling it over the bank or the rat, and they're just out of the water. They can't even swim anymore.
Yeah, they're like,
and they've been 5-6 pounders.
That's freaking nuts. Let's talk. I'm curious about your opinion here. There's a lot of people who, when you talk about fishing rats, they're like, oh, well, that works great in an urban fishing situation. But in reality, like, what is it that we're talking about a rat here? Like, the presentation isn't necessarily like a city rat that's going to eat a slice of pizza on the subway. This could be looked at as a variety of different mammals that get into the water. Have you noticed that you've done better fishing in an urban environment, or if you've been, remote out there, in the middle of nowhere, have you had the same kind of success with rats?
Everywhere I bring the one piece, it gets bit. That's all I'm going to say, but I can't really speak. I don't fish giant bodies of water.
Yeah.
And I don't fish from boats. So I'm always kind of fishing in an urban setting, highly pressured urban settings, and I don't honestly have a choice but to use the one piece a lot of the times, just for the fact that there's everywhere here is just so pressured. It's really hard to get any fish.
No, it makes sense.
So I take what I can get.
Yep.
But if I don't know exactly how to answer the question.
Yeah.
A lot of it just depends on where you're at. Like, even on a lake that I get bit at a lot, it may be just one section of the lake that I get bit on.
Yeah.
But if you're fishing giant bodies of water, you don't get to notice those subtleties.
No, definitely. It's too much knowledge.
Giant bodies of water.
Yep.
And you can't keep up with everything that's going on at the lake. But when you're fishing these small lakes, I can divide them up in sections and be like, okay, over here, the bass are only eating dragonflies. And this is real. Like, I've seen this happen. If you fish anything over there, they won't do anything, but they'll eat dragonflies all day. And then you walk just a little bit more down, there's another section of fish that are only eating swim baits. If you throw anything else there, you won't, like small kitex, that's all that they want to eat.
Yeah.
But on a big lake, I think those get lost. Like the personality. I mean, if you fish a lot, you may be able to map out a section of B.A.S.S or Clear Lake.
Yeah.
But thinking that you know everything for every water level.
There's so much data to take in. Yeah.
It's too much, man.
Yeah.
It's too much without a group effort. And nobody wants a group effort when they're catching big fish.
No, that's true.
So it'll never happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think no one wants to share.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing with that I have noticed is I've had the most effective days with rats in river systems. The term river rat, I think, is a thing for a reason, usually, and ironically, casting parallel to the bank, just in that high percentage area, and I'm giving myself an idea now. I'm going to go back. I might go with my father, actually, tomorrow, Saturday, and fish that same body of water that I was throwing the travel mischief at. And I'm going to go and I'm going to fish. Huh? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And what's interesting about that body of water is it's a river system where there's a dam. And so it opens up. It's a nice little reservoir, but there's a pond that's accessible on the other side. Now, in my boat, I won't be able to get back there, most likely, because the water's probably going to be way too low for it. But I had success on the main river with that travel mischief. And I'm wondering if with the larger one, and what's nice, I'll be able to cover much more water in a single day in the boat. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to set myself up in a position and just travel up. God, I can't wait till I mod this boat, man, with the electronics.
Do you still have a travel mischief on you, or
I do? Yeah,
just the.
No, I've got both of them. Yeah, in fact, I've got both of them tied on separate combos.
Okay. Well, when I want to catch fish, I throw my one-piece travel mischief. If I want bigger fish, but still catch fish, I throw the.
That's
I'm not gonna say I don't like my two pieces, but I prefer
the single piece.
My one.
Yeah.
Just I need that presentation. It just not a lot of people use them.
I'm looking to catch bigs, so I am in a good position in our multi-species tournament, and there's pike in this body of water. So I'm all about that too. So might get some good teeth marks on that sucker. Fingers crossed. Not looking at jigs myself.
To ask you,
what's up?
So I don't fish around any lakes or ponds with predatory fish where bass aren't the top predator.
Gotcha.
Do you find that bass on lakes with pike and lakes without pike hide in the same locations and feed on the same things? I've always been interested to know that, because
there is one body of water. Yeah, there is one body of water that I will say this is the effect that I have noticed, and comes from the original co-host on Jigs and Big, Sean the Fisherman. And I agree with him 100% with this statement. When you find a body of water that has larger predators in it, and I mean, like predatory fish, that's a big category of fish, catfish are predatory fish, you know what I mean? But
super predatory.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And so when you have a body of water, specifically though, with a healthy pike population, and I'm thinking of one specific spot in directly, not like a massive body of water or anything like that, but if there's a healthy pike population in there and they're aggressive, increases the level of aggression of every single other species of fish in there because the competition is higher. So your largemouth they're gonna feed on the same things that they're feeding on, because the way I fish for pike is with bass lures. I don't specialize in anything whatsoever. Other than the only thing I might do is like lean towards something that's got blades a lot of the time. But I've caught the biggest pike I've ever had at the boat that broke me off because it was on a tiny finesse jig with like 4-pound test leader. That tooth just cut right through that leader and he was gone. So, I mean, they'll eat everything. And same thing with the bass population that's there, but they're far more aggressive. Like the bites hit harder. They seem to fight more. And I think it's got increased competition,
Yeah. I was interested to know, like, if you see a laydown, if I see a piece of wood sticking out, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's a bass on that. But that's also open. And I think that if they're getting predated, like bass are getting predated on, they may not want to sit out in the open as much, and that's why I wanted to ask. Like, I didn't know if they were more hidey or still kind of behaving like a bass without predators.
I think they're still behaving. I just think that they're overall more aggressive. So like when they're going to commit to a bite, they're going to get it. And they've also they've grown up. They've like their childhood. They've developed in that environment anyway. So I think that they're probably going to look toward the same level of cover. I think that also the same thing could be said. And I love to use the example of birds of prey. When you have a body of water, and we talk about fish aren't stupid animals, but they realize they have to have cover. And even if they're in open water, they want depth so they can't be seen from those birds of prey. If you can see the bottom, that makes them a target. Regardless of the other species that are in that body of water, if an eagle comes down and wants to grab a fish, it's gone. Do
you guys have diving birds up there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cormorants they're insane down here, man.
Oh, they're disgusting.
Cormorants.
Yep, cormorants and loons. Loons are the reason why we can't use lead in Massachusetts.
Wait, do you only can use tungsten?
No, you can. The Massachusetts laws are strange. You can use lead over an ounce. You can't use lead, what they call sinkers or jigs, under an ounce. And so your drop shot weights, your split shots, your jigs, your bass jigs, your swim jigs. But here's where it gets weird. I can throw a 1/2 ounce lead bladed jig with no problem. I could throw an underspin with no problem. I could throw a spinnerbait with no problem. It's the blades. They're just which I don't know, doesn't make any sense to me. Because if I can throw a chatterbait, I should be able to throw a swim jig.
The blades aren't lead though.
No, they're not lead. They're it's just the way that it's written. You can't. Yeah, it's just as long as it's got wires or a blade, you're okay. But if it's the weirdest thing. There's 6 states in the country that don't let you use lead, and they all have a different take on it. And on top of that, every single one of those states allows you to sell lead products. So if you're a tackle shop, you can sell, 1/2 ounce lead jigs with no problem. But in certain states, if you get into some shit, it could cost you some money.
Yeah, that's definitely strange.
It definitely is. Absolutely.
One of the ones here I don't understand is we can only have 3 treble hooks or 3 hook shanks in California. So you get... I mean, I don't ever have a reason to use more than 3.
Sure.
But I also think that it's kind of odd at the same time.
Yeah.
There's river systems here. We have salmon that run naturally up through our river. We have steelhead, striper.
Yep.
We have a lot of things. And I river fished for a while, which is a lot of inspiration that I got for my baits came from striper fishing. If you notice, every single striper bait, if it's a through wire, and you know what I mean by through wire, right?
Yep.
It's just one solid wire. Mm-hmm. They won't fish anything else.
Yeah.
Because there's some big stripers in Sacramento and there's some 40, 50 pounds in our river systems. They'll destroy absolutely anything.
Yep.
There isn't many baits that can take, like, if this front hook is caught in their mouth.
Yep.
And they bend and get this caught somewhere on their body, when they straighten out again, they'll break any plastic bait.
Oh yeah.
Period. Like it'll just be, so they like using those through wire baits, but the belly grommets, that's what they use for their through wire baits. Is they have the belly grommets on there, and then they have that, you know, wrapped piece at the end.
Yep.
And I really like the look, and it also looks kind of, a lot of old school baits.
Yeah.
Had the belly grommets also. That was just a fun way of doing this. And another reason why it's built as it is because I wanted to be able to take this out and swap it for like a 4-aught.
Yeah, exactly.
And then go striper fishing with the same bait.
Yep.
So I'll maybe like a 180 up front, 180 barrel swivel up front, or 220.
Yep.
Swap it out to a 410 with a 4-aught. I'm ready to go striper fishing.
Yeah,
now.
you can totally change
and that
it up.
bait ain't gonna break.
Yeah. No, that's good to know. And I was actually just talking about striper fishing up here. In New England, striper fishing is like, it's like a whole separate culture. Like, I could do a separate podcast dedicated to striper fishing, and I could probably make a shit ton of money doing it if I just focused on striper fishing. Bobby Roast Beef's dirty little secret, though.
I've never caught a striper nor targeted them. Ever.
And like, I'm right on the Connecticut River, which, you know, dumps out in Connecticut in the ocean, and they migrate right up this river, right up to quite literally the city where I live. There's a dam, and that's pretty much where the majority of them kind of stop. And there is amazing striper fishing. Cape Cod is only 2 hours away on a good day, you know. But again, I'm not going to get in fucking fist fights in the canal or anything like that, because it is a whole, and it's a wild culture. It is insane. No,
it ain't nothing like that down here. I've seen those videos. Massive, nothing like that. People won't even talk to you if they're striper fishing up here.
Yeah.
Nope. They won't. Even if you're their friend for a year, you ain't going to their spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's how secretive the people around here are. They don't want anything going to their holes. It's a lot of work to find them, and it ain't like Massachusetts. Where you can just go catch 14 every one every cast.
Yeah.
That ain't like that.
Yeah.
You gotta put in some serious work.
Oh hell yeah.
If you're fishing out here. I think I fished for 3 months every single day.
Yep. 5
hours. I caught 3 striper in my entire life. But
insane.
one of them was it was about 36 pounds, 41 inches. It was a really big striper though. And that was definitely a fun catch. It dumped my Tranks 400.
Oh yeah,
in less than 14 seconds, gone. Like almost the entire spool, it was gone.
No shit.
It hopped in the river. It was in the river, so it just hopped in the current. There ain't no stopping those things.
Oh
either.
yeah, when they're in the current like that, you're done.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's a big fish, and there wasn't the amount of thumbing that was stopping that thing. No. Like it wasn't happening.
It's funny when you were talking about like going to the lake and you see everybody like shoulder to shoulder. That's how the canal is in Cape Cod. Like that's how it is. It's everybody's like right on top of one another, and like they get fucking kind of crazy. It is
they're
just
sitting next to each other.
Yeah,
they don't want to be. They want that spot for them.
Exactly.
I won't river fish anymore.
Yeah.
It ain't for me. I don't want to see another human soul when I'm fishing. I just want that. I can go out at 2.
Yeah, I can totally get behind that. I'm curious, what is your your favorite species to fish for? And then what is your like short list follow-up? What else do you like fishing for?
I love fishing for catfish. Of course, I like fishing for bass.
Yeah.
Bass is definitely my number one.
Yep.
And this is California, so there really isn't a ton of different fish there's river fish, but
yeah,
I don't like fishing the rivers. It's really boring.
Mm-hmm.
And there's spots in a river.
Yeah.
But when you're in a pond, you're hunting.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. You got to find where they are in that area. You know, those fish are trapped.
When you're on a river, no, you just need a good location. So you're just sitting still, casting in the same spot because there is no better location.
Yeah.
That's where it is. So yeah. So bass, catfish. If I had crappie, I would love fishing for crappie, but those are very rare to find out here without a boat. And bluegill, I love fishing for bluegill too.
They're a blast.
It's so fun.
Yeah,
they are. And you know, I have kids, and my daughter loves coming out and catfishing with me, and it's always fun. If the carp culture wasn't so weird, I would be really more into carp fishing. But
I'll be honest with you. I think there's a change coming in that whole carp culture. I do. I really do. I have some friends out this area who are super into carp fishing, and I see there is some shit changing. I know what you're talking about, but I do see that it is. You know, there's still that element to people that look at carp and think like, oh, that's a trash fish. But at the end of the day, like, it's just a different species. And if you can appreciate them, like before Todd Grubbs started fishing for carp and kind of like gave me some information about them, I didn't even realize that there were various species of carp that were so cool, like ghost carp and mirror carp, you know? I had no clue. I was like, they're all just carp. Oh, that one's kind of cool. It looks like this. But, you know, I think he put it best. He was like, he's like, you know, catching bass was cute for a while. He doesn't fuck around. I don't know if you've ever watched any of Fish and Grub stuff on YouTube. Todd is a maniac. He's super entertaining as well. But he's big into saltwater. He works in the saltwater fishing world, and then he's big into carp fishing because he's like, I'm looking to catch a 50-pound freshwater fish. And that's how you're going to do it. You're not going to catch a 50-pound bass, you know?
No.
I'm like, okay, I understand that.
Sometimes it's just fun to get out and maybe I don't want to walk around for 4 hours on the bank.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a nice day to roll up with a chair and just sit on my ass and fish. But have you caught a carp yet? Have you caught one?
Not yet. I've gone out fishing for them twice now. I haven't had a bite. Although this was it was in like January. It was a warm January day. And I like it because it's one of these things where I think we carp fished for something like 18 to 20 hours, something like that in total. Set up camp. We're there the entire night, you know, alarms going, ready to go. If there was a bite, we didn't get a damn thing. But it's a blast.
When you actually get to hook one,
it's chaos.
They're unreal, dude. They are so strong.
Yeah, and
they fight towards largemouth are fun. They're the laziest fish that I've ever caught. Like I live in private property, and we have a lot of water here.
All right,
we have there's ponds, right? And then there's pond-sized lakes.
Yep.
Lake-sized ponds, and then there's lakes.
Yep.
And we have pond-sized lakes here.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
They're really big. Yeah. Really, really big. This is all within this neighborhood. I'll send you a link afterwards so you could check it out on Google. But we have 3 really big lakes and 3 ponds and a river system all within this community.
No shit. Okay.
And giant bodies of water. If you see me fishing on my page, that's where I'm fishing. I'm fishing in my community.
All right.
But all the lakes have not different species, but like one lake will have largemouth, just Florida strain. And then we have a lake that has northerns and largemouth.
Oh, okay.
And then we have spots and largemouth. And the spots in Florida, a 7-8 pound Florida doesn't even feel like a 3 pound northern. A 3 pound northern fights so hard that you think you have a 6 or a 7 on. And that's what I think carp are just unreal, dude. They'll blow you away. They're like freshwater striper. That's how they feel when you catch one. As soon as they get up to the bank, they're gone.
I'll have to fool around with that.
They're very strong. It's have you ever accidentally hooked into a catfish while you're bass fishing?
All the time, yeah.
Man, isn't it? It's such a good feeling. You're like, oh yeah.
It's the only time lately that I have caught catfish is when it was accidental. Like I've caught them on a Ned. The last one I caught was a channel cat, a good sized one that I needed for the multi-species scavenger hunt, and I caught it on a finesse Kitech. Like a 3.3 inch, just dragging it along the bottom, and then bang, just hammered it.
Yeah, I bet that's fun on light line too.
God, we
use light line out here, and I catch them on my rats all the time.
Yeah,
like
really? That makes sense.
I don't know why.
Yeah,
it's channel catfish too.
Yep.
Like they hit upwater, man. And I've caught some big catfish, like 14 pounds out of our lake up here.
Not bad
for channel cats.
Yep,
not bad size. And that's like the true testament to catching a fish on one of your baits. You're like, okay, if it can handle a 7-pound catfish, there's no bass. There's no bass that can even. I don't care if the thing's 19 pounds. It ain't fighting as hard as the catfish is. Like the catfish are so much stronger.
Yep, super muscular. They're just unbelievable fish. Michael, this was awesome, dude. I'm so glad we finally got to do this. Do me a favor. I need 2 stories from you before we wrap up. I need one story that's just like the fishing story you're most proud of, like the type of story that if you were at an event, you would, and you go up to the bar or something, and somebody says, "Oh yeah, I heard you fish." Like, what's that one you're going to lead with? And then the other story I want is the biggest sort of like the epic fail where the shit hit the fan.
Okay. Well, I haven't had too many epic fails.
Really?
But I've had some bad ones. No, I haven't been fishing long enough to accumulate all of them.
I would say, wow, that's it. Because that's usually the hardest part of this question is figuring out which one is the worst, or like which one to choose, because there's generally a laundry list.
So the first one is, it was September 7th, the day before my birthday.
Yep.
And I was going out striper fishing with one of the like top striper bait makers in the community, period. Dude has like a 1.5-year wait list if you want his baits.
Oh, okay.
And I made a bait from start to finish overnight, and then went out the next day and caught that 41-inch striper.
Oh, all right.
With that guy on my birthday. And I've only caught 3. I've only caught 1 before that.
Yep.
And I've only caught 3 striper.
Oh, wow.
And so I cast it out, and I reel in one that's 7 pounds. And I was like, yes, my PB. And he looks at me. Dude has caught so many fish. He was like, oh, that's a good start. Next cast is when that one, and I was, that was unreal. And like I said, I don't really have that many bad fishing experience, but one time I went out, of course, I'm using straight braid still. And before people want to judge me when I say straight braid's the worst, I put in a lot of time with straight braid.
Yeah.
I know it's bad. It fucks up too much for me to ever want to use it on a consistent basis. But
okay.
I go fish my rat, get a backlash, cast it off. Dig another rat out of my box to fish my rat out, but forgot to pull out the line dig. Cast that rat off.
Oh my God, away. 2 in a row?
3.
3? Oh, Jesus Christ.
I get another rat out to fish those 2 rats out. And it was just a bad cast. Didn't have another rat on me to go retrieve him.
Oh my God.
Which was, So I lost 3 that day. I've also casted into a wall 3 times in a row with 3 different baits and broke all the lips off of them. But most of it is, it's just my fault. I haven't really had too many tragedies.
Yep. Damn, that is crazy, dude. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. Let's do this, man. I'm gonna ask you to send me a picture of you holding a giant, so that we can use it for the artwork of this next episode. But this was an absolute blast, dude. I am so glad we finally got to do this. My goal in 2025 is to try to travel at way more. 2024 was kind of a flop for that. And I'm going to be taking the boat out across the country. So let's go and fish some of these areas. We'll throw some rats from the boat. We'll throw some big fish. We'll crack some cold ones, and we'll have ourselves a good time. How's that sound?
Sounds great, man. And maybe not just the boat. Maybe I can take you out bank fishing.
I would be all about that, 100%.
Okay.
Because that's the thing. A lot of people they're like, "Oh, Bobby's got a boat. He's definitely never going to bank fish again. Oh, no way. And his kayak's going to get some dust." I'm like, "Nope, I'm getting out on the kayak still making that happen in the right situations, you know." But I love fishing with people, and fishing on a boat is ideal because you get the best of everything. You know, you get to fish with folks and go to different areas and really kind of experiment in the body of water. Don't get me wrong. Once it starts getting chilly, I'm going to be following these rivers all winter long and throwing BFS and catching them all winter. It's just going to happen. So
if you have a cold winter,
yep,
I'm telling you, take that one piece, go to the bank and fish parallels during the wintertime, man.
Yeah,
you're going to get your biggest bass during the summertime. They all move up. They're all small.
Yeah,
they're all small fish. I hate fishing and I know a lot of people wait for summertime so they can fish top water.
Yep.
It's just it's a number game at that point. And yeah, it has its time of day, but if you want some 5s and 6s, the wintertime is so much better, I think.
No kidding. See, we get ice on a real cold winter. Like we'll get ice, you know, even on most ponds and lakes around here. Will it be safe to ice fish? It's a gamble these days. You never know. But as we get into that, like November, like right before winter, as fall is just starting to drift off, we get into like early November. That might be the move. I might fool around with that.
You got to try it. It goes against what people say.
Yeah.
But again, I haven't found anything that proves, at least in California, that's been my most productive times every single year, consistently, and every body of water has been winter. So it's just been a fun fish.
No kidding. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, hey, Michael, thank you so much, dude, for doing this. This was absolutely fantastic. I appreciate the hell out of you for being part of the show. We will definitely, we'll have this out. This will drop on Tuesday.
Okay.
Sound good?
And yeah, I'll get you some rat swim baits too.
Oh, dude, thank you. That is awesome, man. I appreciate it. I think that is absolutely genius, and that might be something that you might want to talk with Zach and Josh, because I think that the dark horse world would eat that up. You know,
I have a lot of development to do.
Yep.
That's all I'm gonna say. We're maybe 1 month into a 6-month process, but I'll give you some. Yeah. Like I'm having I know that we're trying to end it, but I'm having an issue with the tails right now. Just they're not as strong as I would like them. So I got to come up with some way of reinforcing these that makes them float still, which has not been done as far as I'm concerned. So I got to make something up. But I'm working on it.
Sound good, dude. Well, you take care, man. We'll stay in touch, okay?
Yep, thank you.
All right, take care, bud. See ya.
Yep, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, all right. We're back, guys. Jigs and Bigs. An amazing interview with Michael. Thank you, Michael, for being our guest. And kind of, you know, letting everybody know about your unbelievable products. Like, I didn't even fully grasp what micro balloons were. I kind of thought that was like something that you like what do they call it? Microdosing at like a fish show or something.
Yeah.
No, come to find out, this is like, not only does he make amazing stuff, you know, but he also makes supplies that other bait makers are using, which is fucking awesome. And yeah,
that's dope. I'm like I said off the air, I'm definitely gonna reach out to him and purchase a couple of those things, because that's especially after what we were just talking about, seeing the shit on that ND Yak Angler fucking video. I was like, I gotta get some of these fucking wake baits like this, and of course, I'm going to get it from a guest of the show.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that's the best way to do it. I do want to say that when it comes to, you know, we were talking before we started recording here about like some of the videos that we've been watching on YouTube and stuff. And specifically, we've mentioned ND Yak Angler a bunch.
Yeah.
In a way, kind of joking sometimes about his baits or his voice specifically being like the Bob Ross of the fishing community.
Oh, dude, it really is.
Totally
it really is.
man.
It's like that ASMR shit as you're watching it and listening. Yeah,
I could watch his stuff all day long. It's fantastic. But like he had that new video, and he was throwing a squirrel presentation, a big wake bait, the 4-ounce wake bait, and it was amazing. Dude was just hammering them, and I'm watching where he's throwing these, and I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I'm looking for, those submerged weeds. I typically look for water that's really still, like what he was dealing with. But apparently, like what Michael was saying is like, mix it the fuck up. You know, when it gets windy, that might be a good time to upsize right there. You know,
and even in that video, it got choppy towards the end. If you remember,
yeah, you're right.
Still like, the biggest reason why I like watching him is when he does the pike and the muskie stuff.
Oh yeah,
and like to see him bring that to like, he's like, oh, this is like one of my largemouth spots. I was like, come on. And then, dude, he got a high 4, then he got the 5. I was like, holy shit, dude.
Yeah, it was like, and he was like, yeah, we didn't do big numbers, but I think his smallest fish was like a 3 something. You know?
Dude.
And that's like, all right, that's pretty damn good, man, for being as far north as he is too. It's like, bro, fucking love it, man. I fucking absolutely love it. But we were talking content, and I do want to say this. So I watch a lot of different content creators, all kinds of different stuff. But I will tell you, friend of the show. So yeah, am I a little bit biased? Absolutely. But Becca put out a video, and it's a 2-parter. Because it was a collaboration with another content creator that fits in sort of a similar space that she does as far as truck camping and stuff. Have you ever heard of the channel Roaming Reckless?
I have. I think it's only from I did from Becca's page. That's how I know it now. Yeah,
I discovered Maria Roaming Reckless a while ago. She has this like 90s Defender, like imported from the UK, like right-hand drive, the whole deal, rooftop tent, like it's a sweet fucking setup. And she's doing like a 50-state road trip. She was in Alaska for like 6 months last winter. And I mean, her content's fucking unbelievable. But like her stuff and Becca's stuff, it's like peanut butter and jelly. Like it just fits perfectly. I've never seen Rhea fish. And while she's on the East Coast right now. She actually, while she was in New Jersey, got robbed. Somebody broke into her truck and stole like a ridiculous amount of like camera gear, personal items. Like it was fucking fucked Jersey, up. Dude. Yeah, fucking Jersey. Fucking Janelle. What's up with your people? The fuck? But she, you know, and she's just fucking killing it. Well, they went and they camped up in New Hampshire, and it was just unbelievable. It was great. The 2 videos are a counterpart of one another. So you saw them from each side, and I was like, this is amazing. So unbelievable shit. If you have not checked this out, I highly recommend you go check out both channels. Check out Becca Y on YouTube and check out Roaming Reckless. Quality stuff. Quality stuff. If you dig, especially the camping stuff, unbelievable. I also love a video where Becca busts out with the fly rod.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because that's not in her wheelhouse necessarily. And she's like, yeah, this stream looks amazing. Let's go. Let's see what we can do. So yeah, when they were up here, I was like, look, if you guys want to take the boat out, tell me where, and I'll make it happen. I'll pull Delaney out of school. She'll just stay home that day with the dogs, and we'll go. We'll send it. And it just nothing ever lined up. So
yeah,
good stuff, man. We got to talk some pizzas because it's now been 2 episodes.
Yeah, we got to talk.
And Pat Martin, I don't know if Pat's still in here, but Pat Martin,
I hope he is
a proprietor of, he's a pizza, he works in the business. He's a pizza guy, you know?
Yep.
So on last week's show, we had used some clips from Matt Thayer, actually. By the way, happy birthday to Matt Thayer. We played that little clip. Today is Matt's birthday. I believe he's 21 today, actually. I think today is his 21st birthday. So Pat...
Pat's in here. I'm so pumped.
This is going to be great. So... we had, Matt had called in last episode. I had played a couple of his messages going in, and he was talking about how upset he was at me for my take on Frank Pepe's pizza, and then that led to this whole conversation. And Pat had brought up something called the buffalo nonsense. And this pizza is a buffalo chicken pizza, of which I still say from DB's, this is where Pat works. From DB's, is still the best buffalo chicken pizza I've had. It's topped with, add onions, add pineapple. So Joe and I weighed in, and we both kind of agree that this could work. And now we have proof. Joe, go ahead. Talk about your experience.
So I promised on the last show, I said, and the clips on Instagram, I said, Bobby, I'm going to try it. And sure as shit, we ordered pizza one day, and I got a small, I on the side of like what I typically get, I got the buffalo chicken, add the pineapple, add the onions. And we got it, and I opened it. It was funny because, I had the wife with me and one of my kids, Jeremiah. He's the one that'll try anything.
Yep.
And I looked at it. We kind of just like that movie Holes, dude, where they're just like looking over the hole and just like that's a view. We're just kind of all looking at it, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think I'm gonna do it. So I grabbed it and I took a bite, and I made sure the first bite had all the ingredients on it.
Yeah,
and, bro, it was so good.
Right?
It was so good.
Now, what was it? Give a shout out to, where did you order from?
I ordered from Uncle Sam's. It's called Uncle Sam's in East Brookfield. Yeah.
Do they use blue cheese dressing on their buffalo chicken, or do they use blue cheese crumbles?
So they do use the dressing.
Okay.
They put it on the side. So you kind of do it. You do it yourself.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, dude. So it's don't knock it till you try it, Todd. I'm telling you, dude. So here's the thing. I did it, and I did it with first I did it without the blue cheese. I was like, I just want to eat it for what it is.
Yeah.
Tried it with the blue cheese, still good, but I chose to do it without it. Just the straight up pineapple, the onions, and the buffalo.
Yep.
And so I try it, and Meg's like, I go, it's so good. She's like, really? I was like, it's so fucking good. So she tries it, and she tries it, dude, and she's like, oh my God. I was like, so I'm not crazy? And then Jeremiah, that fucking kid is a garbage disposal. that he's like a garbage disposal, and he's like over at the table like what are you guys doing? I'm like,
what you
I
got?
want to try it, dude. So he the only thing he's not a huge onion fan. He liked it.
Gotcha.
He's like I would pick off the onions. I was like, well, you gotta do onions. That's what we had to do. Yeah. Dude, we will absolutely 1,000% order it again.
That's 100%, dude. That's awesome. I'm so glad
it was
to hear
a
that.
hit. It was a hit in my house, dude.
That's awesome, man. So I doubled down. I did two things. I test drove two items. Number one, the buffalo nonsense, right?
Yep.
But I had to have, off of your recommendation, I had to check out Alessio's in Westfield. Yes. And I was looking at the menu, and I'm like, wow, because there was two pies. First off, I had to order the buffalo nonsense. Had to make it happen. I had to also order a Firehouse, which was holy jeez, dude. Yeah, that was fantastic. And then I said to my wife, I was like, let's just order smalls, but order like a handful of them. We'll just keep the leftovers and like whatever. So we ordered 4 smalls. We ordered the Firehouse. We ordered the buffalo chicken, and the buffalo chicken is one of my wife's picks. And I was like, listen, I'm going to do half of it is buffalo nonsense. And she's like, okay, cool. That works. So half of it had onions and pineapple. The other half didn't. Yep. And then we got some Mediterranean, which was like with feta cheese and spinach, and it was really good. And then what was the other one? Oh, it's like they call it like a cowboy burger or something.
Oh, I don't want it. Yep.
Yeah,
I've had
it's got like barbecue sauce and onion rings and shit and crazy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was, I think that was a pick that my wife was like, the girls are gonna love this. And we had everybody was at the house last night, so it was perfect. So we just set all these boxes up on the table. And now Alessio's, buffalo chicken pizza. They do like the chicken fingers with the sauce and everything.
Yes.
There is no tomato sauce on their pizza, on their buffalo chicken pizza. I think it's actually buffalo sauce. And they do the blue cheese dressing, but they serve it almost like if you were to order ricotta on a pizza, where it's like a little dollop here and there, a little bit. So you only get like specific bites that have it.
Yes.
Number one, let's overview overall. We'll let the cat out of the bag. The buffalo nonsense works. It just works. I'm like, that is, I get why somebody would like that. Is it something I would order necessarily all the time? I'm a little bit more traditional than that. Probably not. However, I will say that Firehouse is something that I could order all the time and have no issues ordering that sucker and being happy. Now, as far as Alessio's goes, the crust is like, you know, where you watch Dave Portnoy doing the pizza ratings and he holds up a slice and he's like, it's not flopping over. It's got good structure. Like, it was fantastic. When he got to the end of the crust, maybe a little bit bland, you know, but like, again, like they're not trying to cover anything up with like some garlic salt and herbs around the sides or anything like that. It was just fucking unbelievable. Unbelievable. I'm like, this is amazing. I will say that the Firehouse was the standout, though. I was like, this is my jam.
Yeah, that's for guys at work. Like, I'll do the Firehouse occasionally. That shit fucks up my guts a little bit these days. But, dude, I fucking love Alessio's pie, man. Love it.
They're absolutely fantastic. Like, we will be ordering. They don't deliver out here, and they're not on Slice, so it's not like there's. Although actually, they might be on DoorDash or something. So we could do delivery that way if we wanted to pay like $1,000. But I was like, that's pretty crazy, man. I'm like, that is all right. I can get down with it.
Anytime you're hitting Congamon Jr., dude, you can make a little stop.
That's what I'm saying.
Mean?
Oh, God. That's not a bad idea at all. In fact, you know what's funny? So we had a little meeting about the Cayuga trip for Boats and Scroats too. And we were talking specifically, we were like, so what should we do? Should we do a, like, everybody's on their own for breakfast, and then we do a dinner where everybody just meets and, like, you know, everybody will be in charge of whatever.
Right.
And I kind of like that idea. I said, let's make it breakfast and lunch because people are going to be on the water at different times. And, like, that's a lot to fucking do. So we decided we were going to do pizza the first night. So this way, nobody's got to worry about cooking anything. We're just going to have pizza delivered and, you know, make it nice and easy. I might make the suggestion that they try a buffalo nonsense just to try it.
Do it. You have to.
I also think that, what was it? The buffalo nonsense. And then, then we're doing burgers and glizzies, one night. And then I'm making chili on Sunday. I'm making a big pot of chili. Janelle's going to make some cornbread. And I'm like, that's exactly what we want to do. Boom. Just warm everybody up. It'll be great. And she's like, don't make it too spicy though, Bobby. Don't make it too spicy. I was like, I'm not. I'm going to make mild chili, but I'm going to bring a variety of hot sauces so that people can sample and do whatever the fuck they want. I'm like, this will be, it'll be nice. It's going to be like a little chili buffet. In fact, if we have enough glizzies left over, I might make it a chili,
a chili dog.
Hell yeah. Chili glizzy.
Pat says here, he goes, Bob, you had the BLT when you were at DB's, right? I did, and it was fantastic. And I'll tell you, like, I think that, and Todd says something interesting. He goes, something about warm pineapple. I will say this much, that when you have hot and cold ingredients that go together, I appreciate a place that doesn't add like lettuce and tomato to when I order a grinder, they add it after they've put it in the oven, you know, so it's all melty and bubbly, and then they add that stuff afterward. It's fine. I'll bet you if you did that buffalo nonsense, but added the pineapple after it came out of the oven, to be even better. Or use crushed pineapple.
Bobby, have you ever grilled pineapple?
Yes, I have. Have you ever grilled peaches?
No.
Oh, yeah,
but
baby.
One of my favorite things, dude, you know what tahini is, right? Like the seasoning, like that they'll put on the rims of market, the spicy one. Dude, pineapple, sprinkle some tahini on it.
So, one of my favorite beers, Mango Cart from Golden Road.
Okay.
Have you ever had this? It's
I haven't had that, but I know you're a fan of the pineapple jalapeno beer that I'm also a fan of.
This is different. This is a peaches for me, Pat. Peaches for me. This is a beer. It's a wheat beer, and it's got tons of mango punch. It's great. I love a pint of mango cart with a tahini rim. Oh, it is so good.
Yeah,
I'm telling you. Oh,
that's like one of the most underrated like spices ever.
I agree. I 100% agree. Although I will tell you what, I would love to take some Andy's Heat Your Meat and put that on a rim of any glass. And have like a mango cart or a Bloody Mary or something like that. That would be pretty awesome. Oh, okay. This is a good question. I like this. This Pat's diving in with the info. Did they use pineapple slices or tidbits? Chunks, yeah.
Chunks, yeah.
That's what they had on mine too. It was pineapple chunks. Yep. And I have had pineapple Hawaiian pizzas in the past where they used the rings. And while it looked amazing on there, I felt like it was overpowering.
Sure.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is great.
But you know what we gotta do now, Bobby?
What's that?
Is like we gotta make this like a series over time. Like, we tried it at some local spots. Now we gotta try it at a couple different places.
I think so.
Just to make sure. Just to make sure. Yeah.
But I have an idea. Pat, I think what we need to do is, I know I mentioned it last episode, but I think we can make this a reality. We need to figure out a way to do just a straight up Bobby Roast Beef trivia night at DB's. Figure something out and make it, if we want to call it a Jigs and Bigs pizza party and do something like that, maybe we'll call it a promotional effort and we'll just have ourselves a good time. I think what we could do is do little samples of DB's Buffalo nonsense and then take a crowd vote.
Ooh.
I could use this trivia software to do it. Be like, did you like it or did you hate it?
Yeah.
Are we crazy or what?
Yeah.
A limited edition Jigs and Bigs DB's pizza t-shirt. Oh, fuck. Merchandising. Oh, I fucking love it. I fucking love it. Oh, good shit. You got anything you want to wrap up with, Joe?
No, man. I think we covered it all.
I think we did a really great job.
Yeah, we did. It was a great show. I was pumped to talk about the pizza.
Fuck yeah, dude. And
dude, you got Cayuga coming up. I have 2 straight weeks of St. Lawrence. Hopefully, we're gonna see up there too.
Yes, yeah, that's the plan.
I'm pumped. I'm bringing Jeremiah with me, which is gonna be. Oh yeah, so we'll be there Thursday to Sunday of was it like the 10th or the 13th or something. I'm so excited.
That's awesome, man.
The Butcher's gonna be up there. I'm gonna see him up there.
Nice.
A couple other people, and it's gonna be
freaking awesome, man. It's such a great spot. Yeah, I am gonna go up. I'm planning on going up at least for the Saturday, even if I just leave like earlier in the morning. For the awards and emceeing and everything. But I would really like to get up there and be able to fish, and I might take Friday off and go and do that. Yeah. I might go for it, but I got shit I got to work on this week. I got to figure out that trolling motor issue. That is obviously going to take backseat to prepping and everything. I got 2 weddings coming up this weekend, so we'll see if I'm even able to get out doing any kind of fishing whatsoever. The September Derb is about to end tomorrow, so good luck to anybody who can get out there and make it happen. But hey, you know how it is, guys. Thanks for everybody for checking out this episode of Jigs and Bigs. We appreciate you guys so much, as always, and you guys have been doing great with this. Tag us in your fishing pics. If you're putting them on any kind of social media platform, you're tagging us. We want to give you a like, a follow, a comment for sure, and share your stuff on our stories. As always, we know that our listeners of this show, we have a weird show, kind of fits a little bit of a niche, and we appreciate our listeners, I think, a little bit more than you guys realize, because this show is not necessarily an easy listen, especially if you're one of those folks that's looking primarily for tips and like super, super dialed fishing information. But if you're looking for a good time and learn a little something along the way, Jigs and Bigs has you. We will see you guys. Have yourselves a great one, everybody. Like we always say,
tits and ass, smoke some
Let headlines meet destruction.